What's going on, guys? It's your boy Scrub here, back again with another video. Today I've got another compilation of Reddit stories for you guys. You guys seem to really enjoy the last one, so I figured why not do another, and yeah, without further ado, enjoy it. Bye. One day in college, the teacher had stapled the answer sheet to the back of the test by mistake. A few minutes after passing the tests around, his phone rang and he stepped out, and everyone noticed the answer sheet and decided we would all use it and tear it off after, and hopefully he'd never notice. So I checked each of the answers and they were all correct except for the last one. We were supposed to draw a flowchart for the process, and I checked the answer sheet and it said answers will vary. So I drew my flowchart, tore off the answer sheet, and walked to the front podium to turn the test in. And when I got to the podium, I had to know. I needed to see what everyone else had drawn for their flowchart. Answers will vary. Everyone had written that on their tests, and I don't really remember what the teacher did about it. Oh man, if you're gonna get lucky enough to find the answer sheet, you at least have to double check that the answer makes any sense with the question. Wow, it's weird. They all wrote answers will vary instead of making a flowchart. Let me double check the answer. Oh, alright, there it is. Imagine like the dude who actually drew the flowchart is the only person who keeps his 100%. My junior year of high school, it was the first day of class. The teacher walks in and it's an older wrinkly guy with a stash, a little weird looking, and his shirt is only tucked in on one side. Everyone is just getting a weird vibe from the guy, like he's not all there in the head and he's got a manic look in his eyes. It's just creepy. He starts going through attendance, not looking up the whole time, and he gets to my name and starts to say it, then stops, looks up, scans the room, looks directly at me and says, "Ah, Mr. 102194. I'm glad you're here. How's your family? Is your little sister still playing the piano? Is that model ship still on your dresser? Is your room still blue?" I'm shocked, mortified. I can't find the words to respond. This creeper had just described my family and the room I sleep in at night. Of course, it's only been what, a week? Then he goes back to attendance. Panics were had that day. But anyways, the next day I find out the old crazy guy is my uncle's best friend. And they and my dad decided to pull a prank on me on the first day of school. The teacher wasn't so crazy looking the rest of the year. He shaved the stash, which he grew from the prank apparently, dressed better, and stopped making his eye twitch. I have to admit, it was a good prank, even if I was terrified of being murdered for a day or two. That's some commitment, dude, and that's a good one. You never expect a teacher you don't know to be in on a prank to make you feel like someone's been creeping on you, dog. Next thing you know, in the next Zoom class, they're gonna be like, "Ah, is your mom still wearing the purple shirt she was earlier?" No, my worst fear of being an Xbox gamer came true. My teacher is with my mother. I had a flock of chickens, and something kept getting at them during the night. It would only take one bird and leave no remains, so I assumed it was a fox. My family went on vacation, so I decided to stay up in the barn for the night and see if I could catch what was getting them. That night, every chicken roosted for the evening in the bushes around our house. It was as if they knew I was going to catch the thing, so they helped me out by letting me sleep in the house. I laid on the porch in a sleeping bag with an old lady blue plaid nightgown and a mag light in my hand. At about 1 a.m., I hear a squawking sound and I jump with the flashlight, run outside, and see something smallish with a hen in its mouth. It runs to the tree line and I follow it, cursing the whole way. It drops the hen, which is dead, and as I point the flashlight into the trees, I see a youngish raccoon. I pick up the chicken and start shaking it at the raccoon, cursing. I then think I'm gonna shoot this thing right here and now, so I run back to the house, still holding the chicken and the flashlight, and look for a gun. The only thing I can find is a loaded semi-automatic paintball gun. I set the chicken on the counter, grab it, and run back outside. And after finding the raccoon with the flashlight still sitting up in the tree, I drop the light and open fire, splattering the whole tree, raccoon and all, with hot pink paintballs as I'm screaming, "Take that! That'll teach you to eat my chickens!" Mind you, it's 1 a.m. I have neighbors. My rage finally quelled and I put down the paintball gun and pick up the flashlight, and all I can see is the tree, pink branches, and no raccoon in sight. So I get a rocking chair, set it out in the driveway, and sit watch. And at that point, one of my hens started slipping on a trash can lid she was perched on, so I picked her up and put her on my lap. I stayed that way, rocking in my rocking chair in my blue plaid nightgown in my driveway with the paintball gun and a mag light and a hen on my lap for the rest of the night. The little raccoon never came back. Is this how Ratatouille felt in that opening scene where like the old lady finds him all in the roof with the shotgun, man? That raccoon went back to his family and was like, "You guys would not believe this dude. There I was trying to get some chicken nuggets. Next thing I know, I'm painted pink." I just love the idea of him like dodging paintball bullets, you know, it's like G-Force but raccoon edition, as he's just jumping from like paintball to paintball, evading all of it like a Sly Cooper ninja reel. Just after my husband and I started dating, we were at my house watching a movie. I didn't have a couch, so we were sitting on the floor. About halfway through, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed him shifting subtly. He was obviously uncomfortable and equally obviously not wanting me to notice. After being offered a cushion to sit on, he says, "No, nothing's wrong, I'm fine." It struck me as so ridiculous that he would sit there uncomfortable that I got a little tickled. Not giving it much thought, I reached over and patted and whacked his thigh 4 or 5 good times, saying, "Well, that's okay then." So his leg was asleep and it was waking up, so he was on full-on pins and needles. He laughed, screamed, and farted all at the same time. It was glorious and I was wailing with laughter. So now I tell people that he knew I'm evil when he married me. Unfortunately, it did break the passing gas in front of her barrier, which was never to return. It was so worth it though. Yo, that's how you know that you get along with the person you're with, right? If they can smack you on the leg while it's asleep and your response is screaming and farting and they laugh and reply, it means you're probably pretty cool with the person, you know? All in all, though, having somebody smack an appendage that is asleep sounds absolutely dreadful. I don't know if I could gas on command like this guy, you know, he had a skunk defense reaction. I just try to treat my buns like a loaded weapon and avoid keeping one in the chamber. Back in year 12, we had a practical for a biology class that involved a trip on this thing called a skyrail. It's made of a bunch of stops as it progresses up on a mountain, and we were supposed to collect samples at each place and compare them to the final location atop the mountain. The final location was a 20 and 30-minute walk from the top of the skyrail through a town. The teachers walked us to the final spot and told us that we were to be at the skyrail sometime later, and then went to the town to have coffee. When we were supposed to meet back up at the skyrail, everyone was there except from 2 of the 6 guys from the cart we rode up with. They were late because one of them, who I'll call Chris, went to buy a drink from a grocery store before we went back down. For reasons that I never even think were known to Chris, he bought a 2-liter iced coffee. We were about to go on the skyrail to make the whole trip back without stopping, and it's about a 40-minute trip. And at this point, he's told that he can't take food or drinks on the skyrail. Without second thought, he replied, "No problem," and began drinking it without breath between words and gulps. He ended up drowning it with impressive speed, barely holding up the line to the skyrail, and finished the last drop as he set foot onto the cart, which boards into a ski lift manner and constantly rotates without stopping. Immediately, as the cart frees itself from the guide rail, it starts to sway, as soon as it sways, quietly, a man who's nearly as quiet as someone on his deathbed states with fear, "I shouldn't have drank that milk." In unison, the other 5 of us, what seemed to be a smaller cart, replied, "You're effed." What followed was going to be 40 minutes of 5 teenage boys trying to rock the cart in what seemed to be an attempt to free it from the cable. And what happened was about 15 minutes in which tearly-eyed Chris nearly found his lunch thrice before releasing all the rage in Hades in the form of a stomach bile, consequently testing the optimistically named drainage system on the tiny sky cart. See, this is where you really messed up. If somebody's saying they're sick and about to puke and you're in a small enclosed space with them, you don't start rocking them and trying to make them puke, because then you're the dummy inside the small enclosed sky cart with all the puke that won't drain. I'm assuming the other 20 minutes of that journey with all the puke entering your nose was not as pleasant as the beginning when you made him puke in the first place. And I'm also assuming he wasn't very happy about the whole making him puke thing. My friend, his parents, and I all went out to eat for his dad's birthday a few months ago, and me and my friend finished our food early, so his mom gave us $10 and a milk coupon to run to the Meijer and pick up a shower mirror and a gallon of milk. This Meijer was unfamiliar to us, so we ended up wandering around for a while to find our stuff. And my friend tells me that he has to use the bathroom, so he ends up running off, and I finished up looking for the stuff we needed. 10 minutes have passed, and I was standing near the self-checkout waiting for him to show up when he finally walks up behind me, and I noticed he seemed a bit nervous. The first things he says is, "Hey, so we're bros, right?" And I said, "Yeah, I guess so, why?" And he looked me dead in the eyes and said, "I just crap myself, dude." At first I thought it was a joke, and then he pulled his hand from his pocket, revealing a crap-covered $10 bill, coupon, and palm. He says, "Dude, I couldn't find the bathroom and it just slipped out." When I asked what he did with the crap, he looked around and made sure nobody else was listening. I threw it on a shelf and ran. This was the icing on my cake to my hysterical laughter dead center in Meijer. He left to go clean up while I delicately handled the non-crap covered side of the money, and we left to go find his parents waiting outside, pissed off we were so late. When we came up short on change to his mom and asked why we didn't use the coupon, he pulled it out of his pocket and said, "I don't know how exactly to tell you this, but..." And before he could finish, she interrupted and got angry with, "You lost the coupon, didn't you? This is why I can't trust you to do things for me." He slid the poo-slathered coupon back back in his pocket and muttered, "Oh yeah, I lost it," with relief, and I couldn't contain my giggling the whole way home. He was actually terrified he'd end up on the news or something. Imagine being the poor worker in the mire that had to be walking up and down the aisle and found human feces just on a shelf, or sitting on a shelf, I guess, whatever, that was a Freudian slip. Seriously though, like, what do you do in that situation? It's not like you're ever prepared at this job to actually have to pick up human feces. And a better question is, why did this dude decide to pick it out with his hand and put it on a shelf? I feel like the best course of action is to waddle to the bathroom so that way you don't have to smear poop all over the money you have in your pocket, weirdo. When I was 4, my parents' car trip from Edmonton to Vancouver, and being an idiot, my dad declined to make reservations at any hotels. We get halfway and my mom wants to stop for the night in Banff, and every single room is booked except for the fancy smancy Banff Springs Fairmont Hotel, which is so beautiful it hurts the eyes. My dad, being a cheapskate, tried to convince my mom to sleep in the car, but she was not into that plan whatsoever. Not with 2 children, both of whom recovering from the sniffles. So we get up to the room and it's fine and dandy, and check-in person mentions a pool, and being 4, my eyes light up like a Christmas tree. Mom takes us up to the room to get changed because I will not be swayed. I will go swimming, cold or not. We get back in the elevator to return to the lobby, and the pool is on the ground floor across the entrance. I take off running, super psyched for swimming, and Mom just sees the switch go off. I suddenly need to blow my nose. I stop, look around, and I'm wearing my bathing suit, so nothing to blow my nose on there. And even as she sprints forward, towel in hand, I get down on all 4s, grab 2 handfuls of their Persian rug, and give her. The lobby is dead silent, and the massive bus of Japanese tourists at the hotel counter turn in horror. I get up and continue on my merry way to the pool, and my mom is left with angry hotel employees looking at a puddle of my snot. Listen, man, it's not his fault that you guys put your Persian rug there. If you had to blow your nose at 4 years old and look down, you probably would have done the same thing. My better question is why 4-year-old him decided that blowing, like, his nose in the rug was the best decision, man. I don't know. I've never looked at a rug and been like, now that's a Kleenex. The hotel lobby people, this rug costs $40,000. Yeah, that's crazy. Now it's a $40,000 Kleenex. You're welcome. I'm making art for you. A friend of my soon-to-be father-in-law is a bona fide lunatic. Some guys had played a practical joke on him a few months back, and he'd been waiting for revenge. They live on the central coast of New South Wales in Australia, so there's a lot of water that separates the town, and people use boats a lot to get around. Some of the guys who pulled a practical joke on him called around to see him and hang out, and he'd recently bought a new place and said, why don't they drive around and have a look? He said he'd be around shortly after and they could have a few beers and chill out there. Just before they left, he said his mother was there, but she was old, and just to hang outside until they got there, and that she wouldn't notice and might get a fright if they called into the house. As soon as the guys drove off, he hopped in his boat and tore across the water to his place quicker, in a way that was quicker than driving. He got to his place, threw on a dress and a wig, some old boots, and grabbed his rifle. Hid in the house, waited for his friend to arrive. They arrive and are looking around the property when he bursts out of the house screaming like an old woman. The guys are about to try and calm her down when he cocks the rifle and starts letting shots off above their heads. They only realized it was him when they stopped screaming their heads off long enough to realize that the mother had literally keeled over laughing until they pretty much crapped their pants. 2 of the guys had literally ran home. He said it took them about an hour to get over the fright, and needless to say, they never pulled a practical joke on him again. These guys used to work on a building site, and their boss was really predictable, and every day like clockwork would go to the same portaloo and have a crap. They started hooking the seat up to a battery, and he started getting a shock when he sat down. He stopped going to the portaloo and started going to the spot in some woods nearby. They stalked him for a few days and realized he always went to the same spot, so they put some dirt and leaves on a spade and hid it in a ditch behind him. Apparently it took a few days, but bingo. One of the days he pooped directly onto the spade, which very quietly removed it so there was nothing on the ground. Apparently, he came back to his staff white as a ghost, thinking he was losing his mind, and told them about his vanishing poop. They all had to fight back the tears from laughing, and it turned out it freaked him out so much that he used to drive 10 minutes off-site to use the bathroom because he was so scared. Australians, man, you guys have the deadliest continent on the planet, dude. Spiders, snakes, and apparently people going around getting revenge for you pranking them, man. All these sound crazy intense for a prank to just, like, do on a random Tuesday, dude. Australia's really out there. When everything's trying to kill ya, you learn to have a pretty good sense of humor about it. My dad, who was a really funny, outgoing fellow, and my mom stayed very, very frequently at a small hotel connected to a hospital. My dad was a heart transplant recipient and had to be on dialysis due to anti-rejection drugs ruining his kidneys. He did home dialysis, where dextrose solution is pumped into an abdomen and then out over a period of several hours multiple times a night. When they were at the hotel, they drained the large 12-liter heavy plastic sack that held the used solution, which is basically pee, down the toilet. In the morning, they would throw away the empty sack and everything was all good. One time, he was in a hurry and they forgot to empty the sack and left it sealed up in their hotel room. Fast forward 5 months later and I was visiting my dad, who was in the hospital, and I ended up spending the night at the hospital connected to the hotel. Or the hotel connected to the hospital, sorry. The woman that worked there greeted me as usual and then excitedly told me that there might be something important that my parents had left there on their last day. They proudly opened a locked cabinet, and there on the shelf was a 5-month-old 12-liter bag of piss. My husband and I kept a straight face, thanked them effusively, and then carried the bag to our room and fell on the floor laughing. I just love the idea of the hotel staff like all proud. Wow, guys, we really went above and beyond. These loyal customers ended up leaving something behind and we took care of it for 5 whole months until they returned to get it. What was it? I don't know. It was a bag of some sort with some yellow liquid. It had a bunch of medical writing on it. My theory is it's liquid gold. Yeah, it was liquid gold, all right, if you consider her dad's pee liquid gold, dude. Like, this pee has just been sitting there fermenting for 5 months. Oh yes, this is a finely aged wine off the kidney dialysis machine. I don't have a car, so I have to rely on my friends for a ride. Well, my friend was on his way to pick me up, and it's getting close to the time he'd arrive, so I grab my bag and start walking down the street. I get about halfway down the road when I see his car, and he starts speeding towards me as I tighten my straps and start running towards his car. I'm hauling it, and he starts to slow down. Just as I'm about to hit his car, I hear a scream and step up and vault off the hood to the side, only to realize that it wasn't him. The driver, obviously flustered and upset, screams, "Are you me?" I'm not even sure how to respond, so I just shrug and run off down the street and am picked up by my friend, and we book it out of there as I tell him the story. See, that's it from his perspective, but from the other guy's perspective, it's like, man, I was just driving down the road minding my own business. All of a sudden, this kid starts running towards my car. So I start to slow down thinking like, why is this crazy dude running towards my car? Next thing I know, he does some sweet parkour move off my hood and then disappears running down the road. I'm not trying to say that they're filming an Assassin's Creed movie in the area. I'm just saying that if they were, I definitely just ran into an actor. I'm then 22 years old, working for a construction company. We had a job out of state, so we were staying in a hotel for a few days. One night, the guy I was sharing a room with and myself got a couple bottles of Captain Morgan and got lit, played some video games, cards, watched TV, and eventually both passed out, super drunk blackout style. When I woke up in the morning, I get up and I realize I'm nude. Don't think anything of it. I sleep nude at home occasionally, so I'm just like, WTF, and get some clothes on. I get ready, feeling horrible, and make my way down to the breakfast room and start eating some cereal and talking to my roommate about the night. He didn't remember much other than he outlasted me just a little bit and then passed out too. I start remembering a dream I had about being lost in some castle and trying to find a bathroom to poop, and expressed to my buddy I had a messed up dream. Anyways, we get to the job site and start working, and around lunchtime, my buddy comes into the building laughing and crying and yelling my name. At this point, I'm laughing too because he's laughing so hard, and he tells me the hotel just called and they're not very happy about the prank that we pulled, and we blocked our keys and we'd have to come back to the front desk and explain ourselves before they're letting us back in. He asked why, and they responded with, "There's a huge pile of feces next to one of the beds." He asked, "Poop?" "Poop." "Yes, poop. What do you know about it?" he replies. "Well, my roommate isn't known for it, but I'll ask him." And at this point, I'm on my knees, dying laughing so hard. My boss is too, hearing this, and is pissed, but I can't help but cry from laughing so hard. So my dream is starting to make sense at this point, but instead of it being a castle, it's a hotel room. So at the end of the day, after seriously laughing the entire rest of it, we head back to the hotel, and nervous and hysterically laughing, we walk back to the lobby. The guy at the front desk is cracking up too when we walk up, and we make up a bullcrap story about how the door doesn't shut right and someone must have walked in and took a dump on our floor after we left. I don't know if he bought it, but he activated it and said, "Good luck." We didn't really pay attention to what he was saying. We were just glad they didn't kick us out. So as we walk into the room laughing like hell, we walk into the room and instantly get hit by a wall of poop. Like I could taste it on my tongue. They left it in the corner the whole day. I fall on the bed, cover my face from embarrassment, still laughing, look up and see my buddy picking it up and throws it in the toilet and says, "I have kids, I do this all the time." I still get crap for it to this day. It's been 7 years. Alright, I don't even really know what to say about that one. What's the dumbest thing you ever got in trouble for at school? I was accused of plagiarism by 2 professors and was given a big long talk about how seriously it was taken. I was confused and crying by the end. They then show me the art I think I copied, and it was from my own site that had popped up in a Google image search. SMH. You gotta love that the teachers just assumed it was plagiarism so quick they didn't even check to see what link they were clicking on to see if it was hers. I mean, honestly, man, it can't be that hard to double check that they aren't plagiarizing, right? If you're already going through all the work to check if they are. The least you could do is give them the benefit of the doubt and make sure it's not their art page, bro. You stole your art. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. Well, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Scrub here, back again with another video, and today we're going to be taking a look at some funny Reddit posts about dumb teachers. I wanted to clarify, alright, obviously not most teachers are dumb, like a majority of teachers, you know, it's a hard job, they're working their buns off. That being said, like any profession, some of them tend to be stupid, so I figured that we would just make a video about the dumb ones. But yeah, you know, that's a disclaimer, so that way you're not running around thinking that all teachers are stupid or that I think that. And without further ado, let's get into some stories. Had a tutor at university who failed 95% of the class. We all complained to the head and explained that if we all failed, that the tutor must not have taught us very well. To the head's credit, she took it very seriously and had everyone's paper regraded. Turns out, everyone passed. See, I don't know if this teacher actually learned their lesson, because I'm sure you passed, you know, but I don't think everyone in the class passed. They were like, "Look, are you even grading the papers? You failed everyone." "You're right, I'll regrade them. Pass, 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 pass." Like, it doesn't seem like any work was done. It just seems like she changed the grade to the exact opposite of what she had before. I will say I'd rather have a teacher hell-bent on making sure I pass than making sure I fail, though. Like, if I gotta pick one. My best friend had a science teacher in middle school that gave him 0 credit for an answer he gave on an exam. The question was, what happens to metal when exposed to air for a long period of time? He answered, the metal oxidizes with air, which slowly over time destroys the integrity of the metal. He got 0 credit because he didn't use the exact word rust. Listen, man, why you out here with all the technical mumbo jumbo that they actually taught you? Everybody knows that you're supposed to just use one-word answers for everything, dude. Rust. You know they would have written that one off for not being in a complete sentence or something. On the bright side, you understand the concept of metal oxidizing and losing strength over time. I'm pretty sure rust doesn't happen to every metal too. Like, every metal oxidizes, but not everything rusts, Mr. Science Teacher Genius. Anyways, back to my favorite game, jumping on rusty nails. That's not a good game, don't play that. My teacher thought that water was not regenerated and cleaned. She thought that the clean water that we currently had access to was eventually going to run out, and she would yell at kids that drank too much water, telling them that the earth was going to dry up soon because they were being greedy by being thirsty. I mean, I do understand that, like, it takes a while for water to be processed and regenerated, so we can have droughts and stuff. That being said, I don't really know what screaming at people for drinking too much water is gonna do. I think thirst is one of those things you don't really have much control over. If you get thirsty, you're just thirsty. Like, some kid comes to your class after PE, he just ran like an 8-mile marathon. Hey, no water for you, buddy. What are you, being greedy? There's a finite amount of that to go around. Like, I don't know, man. If someone needs water, that seems like something you don't want to deny them. My college fired a biology professor just weeks before the semester began, so they hired a chiropractor to teach the main intro to bio class for students intending to go into scientific, engineering, and health-related fields. That was literally his only qualification. He essentially would read PowerPoints verbatim, release us after 15 minutes, and escape the room before the flood of questions could hit him. I learned later that his 20-year-old teaching assistant had to teach him the basics just so he could write the exam. Listen, I'm not trying to 720 no-scope any chiropractors here. I just feel like at some point the college has got to take the blame for hiring a dude to teach a subject he had no qualifications in. That's like some university tomorrow hiring me to, like, teach French, dude. I don't know anything about French. I could walk in there and le petit croissant my way up there, but it's gonna be horrible and no one's gonna learn anything. And sure, you know, and am I an idiot for taking the job? Absolutely. But at a certain point, they're bigger idiots for still signing the paycheck when clearly I don't know what I'm talking about. He really got a university gig and got a university salary to do nothing. My 4th grade year was an eventful one that I will remember forever. The super blonde girl next to me for head lice that you could see crawling in her hair, 9/11 happened, and I got suspended for refusing to eat lunch. At the beginning of the day, we got to pick our lunch from 3 food options. We either got white, red, or blue chips. The options that day in question were peanut butter and jelly, ravioli, or chicken patties. For context, I always hated chicken patties because, well, mayo, and I have serious issues with jelly, so in this case, ravioli was the safe choice. I got to lunch with my ravioli chip and collected my lunch. I ate the roll that came with it, but took a bite of the ravioli and decided it was gross and I wasn't gonna eat it. After I'd eaten the roll, vegetable, and drank my juice, I hated milk even though we had options of strawberry, chocolate, coffee, or plain milk. I went and threw away the tray. One of the teachers supervising lunch saw me throwing out a tray full of ravioli and decided it was a problem and I needed to eat. She stopped me from throwing out the food and told me I needed to finish at least half of it before she'd let me throw it away and go to recess. I was stubborn and determined not to eat the gross mystery meat ravioli, so I refused and sat at the lunch table. When recess was coming to an end, I think the teacher must have felt like I needed to be taught a lesson or something, because she took me to the office with the recommendation that my mom be called for what I guess was non-compliance. I got to listen to my mom being called because I was suspended for the rest of the day and the next day, and when she showed up to pick me up 30 minutes later, I got to listen to her chew out the secretaries when she found out why I was being suspended. My mom made a huge stink about it, and the school was willing to do plain peanut butter sandwiches if requested from then on out. Dude, school food is already bad enough. Now I'm just imagining some whack school ravioli, you know, that couldn't have been good, and some teacher standing over you like, eat it, otherwise you will be suspended. What type of lesson are you trying to teach that kid, dude? If you don't eat lunch, you don't have to come to school for 2 days? Like, okay, man, if you're really throwing that down, little kid me would have never been at school again. I'd be dodging lunch like it was a dodgeball. Yeah, no, just go ahead and send me home for a couple days. I've got some Pokemon to catch. That would be fine with me. You can talk to my secretary, get that all set up. I just feel like suspending kids for not eating lunch, like, is way too big of a punishment compared to the non-crime. This happened in India, so some of the things may not apply to Western colleges, but even in college, we couldn't walk out of classes as we like. The professor had to permit you to do so. I was about 10 minutes late to class one day, and when I entered the classroom, I saw there was nobody there. It took me about 10 seconds to realize this was a mass bunk. Basically, the entire class coordinated with each other and skipped. So I took off for the exit, but the professor saw me and asked me to go into the class and sit there, so I did. Now, I was the only person in class while this guy taught some boring crap for 40 minutes, and at the end of class, he wanted to mark attendance. So he pulls out his attendance register, and instead of just marking my name as present, he called out every one of the 40 students' names while I just answered absent for all of them until my name came around, which was the end of the list. Oh, this one's just brutal, dude. I feel like the teacher punished the wrong people. Are you kidding me? You had a class with 40 people. 39 didn't show up, so you're just gonna make the one guy who did show up's life miserable? I mean, I just feel like he did you dirty. I feel like he was mad at the rest of the class for ditching, right? So he's like, I'll show them. I'm gonna read out all of their names just to teach them a lesson. Not really thinking about the fact that that's just gonna make the one person in your class never gonna want to come back. No wonder everybody ditched. I'm just saying, dude. If he was doing stuff like this, I can only imagine why everybody was like, yeah, let's just not go. We were supposed to have a sub in my AP Environmental Science class. Well, she never showed up. Our assignment was on the desk, so we just picked one up, returned to our seats, and started working on it. No sub ever came, and when the bell rung, we just went to our next class. The next day, the sub that was supposed to be there came in and yelled at us for 20 minutes about how irresponsible we were and how she was disappointed in us. Apparently, we were supposed to go to the front office and tell them, without a hall pass, which would have been against the rules, instead of just taking a paper, which is literally the same thing the sub would have done if she had actually come and was working on it. Wait, you're saying the school was mad that all these kids went into class without a teacher and it didn't end up in a small fire? Are you kidding me? If anything, they should be grateful that everybody was unsupervised for so long and nothing bad happened. I feel like if I would have had a class with no teacher in it, me and my friends probably would have found a way to like accidentally, light something on fire or some stupid situation. The fact that they were mature enough to just grab the worksheet, go sit back down, and then do it in its entirety should be something the school's proud of, not screaming at them about. Why were you guys so responsible yesterday, huh? What do you think this is? Our goal of education to make you into functioning members of society? Get that out of your heads. I had to write a paper for a marketing class in college, and in my college, the rule for every professor was grammatical errors deduct 5 points from your grade. The paper involved a hypothetical advertising campaign, and when I got it back, there was a -5 notation in red pen with no explanation, so I asked the professor after class. Her problem was the sentence, "The budget for the campaign is $15 million. She said it should read, "The budget for the campaign are $15 million. Did they give another chiropractor like a professor job this time in the English department and marketing department instead? Seriously, man, how do you think the budget is $15 million or whatever it was makes any sense? Like, I can't even repeat it because it was so illogical. Let me do my best here. All right, guys, as you know, we're doing a huge advertising campaign to boost sales of our product. The budgeting campaign are $15 million, and everybody in the room is just like, I don't know if that was right, but I feel like it's rude to interrupt the meeting and ask. In A-level chemistry mock exam, the question asked along the lines, why is chlorine used in water treatment? And I put, it acts as a disinfectant. I got 0 marks for that question and a sentence underneath saying, incorrect, it kills bacteria. I contested this and ended up getting into a debate with the teacher until the head of science walked in and I explained my case, for which he turned around and agreed with me, and I ended up getting the mark, although the teacher was bit off with me for a while. This is the absolute worst, bro, when someone's just being insanely nitpicky for no reason and just refuses to admit that it's a little bit absurd, you know? You're like, hey man, I called the exterminator. They're like, don't you mean pest control? You're like, I mean, it's kind of the exact same thing. No, an exterminator's job is to kill things. Pest control's job is to potentially kill things and also potentially remove it from the home. It's like, all right, I mean, yeah, but like, you knew what I meant, you know? It's the same thing. No, it's simply not, okay? Bacterial, disinfectant, and, you know, killing bacteria, two very different things, okay? Let's not get it complicated here. Where do you think the bacteria goes, bro? Like, what did you think happened to the 99.9% of bacteria that goes away after Purell? Did you think they got sent away to a farm upstate? No, it's germ warfare. They got decapitated by the Purell, bro. In my college math class, we had a teacher that didn't know what he was teaching. Literally 0 help when we had questions and constantly contradicting himself. 79% of the class failed the midterm, so the school refired him. Yes, I said refired. He was fired before for not being a good teacher. See, listen, okay, I'm not denying that a lot of the teachers in these stories are stupid, right? But like, dude, if they're gonna get hired and be dumb and get paid to be dumb, I don't know why they wouldn't take advantage of that. I'm just flabbergasted that this guy could be this dumb, get fired once for being a horrible teacher, and then the same school that just fired him for being an idiot's like, you know what, maybe he stopped being an idiot in the last 3 weeks. Whatever, I say we give it another try. Life's about second chances, right? And it's like, yeah, if they've shown they've redeemed themselves, if it's just been a week, then like, I don't really know about that one, Chief, especially when it comes to teaching people math. I feel like that's something you gotta really apply yourself to get good at. You don't just magically pick up those skills on Duolingo. When I was in the 7th grade, we would shuttle between teachers for specific subjects. So our 7th grade homeroom teacher would cover most things, but the 8th grade teacher would teach us science and the 6th grade teacher would teach us literature. Anyways, that year they hired a brand new 6th grade teacher. She must have been no older than 24 and she had a very pompous attitude. I really think she thought she was going to revolutionize the world of elementary school teaching or something. Upon entering her class for our very first session, we were immediately subjected to an intensive literature test, which obviously none of us studied for, since we had no way of knowing about it ahead of time. I don't think she even introduced herself to us during that first session, and it took up the entire time. Puzzled, we turned them in and went back to homeroom. When we entered class the next day, we noticed our desks had been split into 2 sections with a large gap down the middle. We were told not to take our usual seats, and instead she began reading off our names in a seat and sat us in a hand-picked formation. As everyone got settled in and wondered what was going on, she explained. The seating was based off the test results. Apparently, she decided to test us on the first day and attempt to gauge the intelligence of every student. And our seats now reflected this measurement. The left half of the room was designated the smart half, and the right half was designated the dumb half. Now, she wouldn't have to pay much attention to the left side because they were ahead of the curve, and she could just make sure that the right side didn't choke to death on their own saliva. I remember my mind being blown at the sheer stupidity of this adult I was supposed to be learning from, and I remember several people breaking into tears upon finding out they were the dumb ones. Needless to say, it resulted in chaos, bitter battle lines drawn amongst a bunch of preteens who had known each other for a decade, and friendships disintegrated, and childhood trust was never again reestablished, even after her idea was shot down by the school. In one move, she single-handedly destroyed the rapport of an entire junior high class. It is true that different levels of intelligence occur in every class, but good kids kids on both sides never pointed that out. Kids shouldn't get singled out for being smart or for being dumb, and yet this teacher managed to single both out in one colossally stupid move. Bro, this is so messed up on so many levels. First of all, I feel like middle school's already bad enough, dude. Kids are mean enough. You don't also need to add to the fact that now they know that they're a part of the smart half or dumb half, dude. Imagine being put on the dumb half of the room and being like, oh, okay, this is just sick. Thanks for calling me stupid. My goodness gracious, what in the world were they thinking? Just imagine being one of the smart kids, low-key, your ego's now through the roof. You're like, maybe I can float using the power of my mind like a Jedi. I never considered the fact that I was this gifted, but maybe I can have powers. You know, they're like, Mom, please do not speak to me anymore. I'll have you know that I sit on the smart side of the classroom and I no longer speak to people that are dumb. Tell Dad I no longer wish to see him and he can sleep in the doghouse. He is dumber than all of us, and because of that, he must be punished. My chemistry teacher asked us all to find H2O on the elements table. After failing to find it, he decided he was going to write the company who produced the school's educational posters to correct their mistake, as if they'd forgotten about water, the most important element. It took a while to explain it to him. I figured at first it must have been a clever plan to get us more involved with the class lesson, but no, he was just incompetent. He eventually abandoned the lesson on elements and gave us a 45-minute lecture on why children today do not care enough about history and are generally ignorant, including, but not limited to, our lack of respect and interest for Winston Churchill, the martyr and war hero who died for our country after being shot by Adolf, and he was conveniently asked on multiple day trips during our school inspection. Nothing says children today don't know history like saying Winston Churchill was shot during World War II, bro. Hey man, whatever floats your boat. Yep, all the kids today are really stupid. It's almost like just because he's a chemistry teacher, he just assumes that he has to be right in everything. You know, he's like, listen, I teach chemistry. I'm a history expert here. Once again, dude, I don't know why this has to be explained to so many people. If you have a degree in chemistry, you're a chemistry expert. It doesn't mean that you're like a finance guru, okay? That's all right. You just weren't trained in that. I had a substitute math teacher when I was a freshman in high school that somehow lost his grade book, and instead of telling the principal, he just gave everyone an F for the class that quarter. I got my butt whooped for bringing home my one and only F, but thankfully he was fired after the school newsletter went out and I got a Nintendo 64 as an apology from my parents. Overall, a Nintendo 64 to like not get an F and just have a teacher get fired for trying to fail you is pretty solid. The only regret is I wish your parents would have been nicer to you about it. You didn't even fail the class, bro. He's so confused. He's like, I don't understand. I'm promising you that I'm really good at math. They're like, well then how did you get an F? I really don't know. He had to have, like, lost his grade book or something. Oh, yeah, you expect me to believe that the teacher lost his grade book? Yeah, I guess. Next thing you know, the newsletter comes out. They're like, we have to buy him a video game console. I had a teacher in college that arrived late every day. Without even knowing what the subject was, he had to teach that day. He would then spend the entire class solving an equation and failing at it over and over. After 2 months, he realized he was completely useless, so he decided that the class would be self-taught by programming a virtual room on the class subject. I dropped out the next day and told him I was dropping out. He still gave me the lowest passing grade available, and I realized too late to challenge it, losing the chance to retake the class and get a good grade. Teachers like this are the worst, bro. Like, you're late every day, so he drops out because he respects his time and probably has stuff to do, can't afford to just be sitting around waiting for a teacher that doesn't know what he's doing to not show up. Meanwhile, might as well go ahead and try to torpedo his entire academic career by failing him. Like, what does that do, bro? He was just dropping the class. If you just let him leave, everything's fine. No, you have to try to fail him and like ruin his school career? My goodness, that's a level of petty I didn't know was achievable. Especially considering you're the reason he's dropping out because you can't teach. You think you'd be a little understanding. In high school, the photography teacher was brilliant with photography, but dumb as a sack of rocks. I remember showing him a color photo and I had developed, and he asked me how long I exposed it, and I said 60 seconds. And he said, all right, well, try a minute. Listen, I'm sure 60 seconds of exposure was great and all, but I think your teacher has a point. 1 minute probably could do quite a lot of wonders for developing it into something even better. You should tell him that when he asks how late you were. You know, be like, oh, I was 60 seconds late. And he's like, oh, okay, whatever. Next time, just make sure it's under a minute. You know, hey, 60 is bigger than 1, right? My high school world history teacher taught from the book verbatim. Never wrote on the dry erase board, never did handouts, just nose down in the book word for word teaching. The tests were summarized summary questions that were at the back of the book. When you asked a question and the answer wasn't word for word in the book, he would look at you and say, I don't know. A friend of mine became a teacher at that school, and she said he teaches middle school science the exact same way. Dude, how do teachers like this not end up getting fired? Like, he literally is reading word for word from the book. Whenever someone asks a question, he just says, I don't know. You would think after reading the book word for years on end, you know, if he's been at this job for a while, he would have at least been able to retain some of the information. It's almost impressive that he's like managed to not learn anything from the book. He has to be actively trying not to absorb any of the information if that's the case. You know what I mean? Like, you almost have to respect how adamant he is to not learn world history while being a world history teacher. That being said, I think he's a horrible teacher and he shouldn't be doing the whole teaching thing, and the kids are really the people that are gonna suffer. What's the most ground swallow me up embarrassing moment that's ever happened to you? The time I screamed at a woman over poo. My little village has a small annual dog show. We normally enter our little dog who has one friendliest dog and waggiest tail, and dog the judge would like to take home in the past. This year, she was unfortunately in season, so we didn't enter to prevent any fuss from the other dogs, but took her along to watch. Halfway across the park, she decided to poo, and suddenly I realized I forgot a bag. There were loads of people with dogs around due to the show, so I wandered away a little to ask someone for a bag. I turned back, and to my horror, a lady was picking up my dog's mess. Not wanting to feel like one of the a-holes that didn't clean up, I ran towards her to advise her that she didn't have to do that because I was gonna get it. Instead, in a sort of panic, I waved my arms, barking, "That's my poo." Please note that I did not say it's my dog's poo. She physically jumped, then turned a deep red, short of mumbled an apology, dropped the poo, and marched off with her dog. It was at that point I looked to my left and saw my dog's poo sitting a few feet away from the lady's mess that she was attempting to pick up. I think about it at night sometimes. Hey lady, your dog just pooped, but it's mine. I wanted to add it to my collection. I've been missing a turd of that caliber. He just has like every dog turd up on the wall in his collection. Yeah, this one's pretty mortifying, dude. This one gets added to the collection of situations I would be in that would keep me up at night. That's fair. Hey lady, that's my poop. I love that she just walked away. She didn't even say that it was her dog's. She just gave up and left. Then again, if a guy's demanding dog poop, what do? Probably leave. Don't know what I'm doing here. Don't know what I'm doing here. What's going on, guys? It's your boy Scrub here, back again with another video. Hope you guys are having a great day. I know I am. You guys have been loving the Reddit videos. They've been doing way better than anything else. So I figured I would come at you guys with another one today. Obviously, the topic's going to be embarrassing moments people have experienced where they wish the ground swallowed them up. It should be pretty fun. Before we get into it, press the like button and comment. Otherwise, you're going to have an embarrassing moment like this. And yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. When I was younger, I grew my hair out longer and didn't really do anything with it. And because of this in my name, I would get mistaken for a girl when people would first meet me or see me at public spaces. One time, my family and I went out to lunch when I was maybe 8. We go to this local place somewhere that we haven't been before, though. At one point, I have to go use the bathroom, ask my dad where it was, and he points and we're pretty close. I go wait outside of it. It was a single-person bathroom, and after about 30 seconds, some big old guy in his 50s comes up, stands behind me in line. A few seconds later, he taps me on the shoulder and says, "This is the boys' bathroom, the girls' is over there." My dad saw this and heard him and had to tell him that I was a guy. I wanted to die. Honestly, you know, I'm gonna switcheroo this one. I feel like this one's way more embarrassing for the old man to go like try to correct the line that this stranger is standing in for the bathroom and get it wrong. Hey bro, people have long hair, it just is what it is. I don't really feel like it matters much. It's way worse to try to correct a stranger and be wrong. In my opinion, though, that old man should be the one curdling from embarrassment. I was in a line in the cafeteria, and my female friend is leaning on the table holding her purse. Every time she would open it, I would close it. I did it twice when suddenly she faced me, and it was a total stranger. I went back to our classroom and didn't eat lunch. Oh, okay, yeah, this one triggered the hurt receptor, bro. You were just playing with a stranger's purse? My goodness. I would say going back to the classroom and not eating lunch was probably the best decision, dude. She probably turned to all her friends. This weird dude keeps touching my purse and closing it, and I have no clue who he is. Oh, ow. Ordered an Uber with my new boss on a business trip yesterday. Began to make small talk with the driver to show her how great I am at talking to people, and it come to find out the driver was talking with his girlfriend on a headset. I assume you threw yourself from the moving car at that point. This one's great on so many levels, dude. First, trying to show off and embarrassing yourself, hilarious. But on top of that, trying to show that you're an awesome people person by being so oblivious you don't realize the person you're having a conversation with is literally on the phone is like next level, bro. Yeah, I tried to show off I'm great at talking to people by being oblivious to the giant Bluetooth device in the driver's ear. I was 13 and my family and I were on a skiing holiday. My parents had decided to sign me up for lessons so that my dad could get some good skiing in and my mom and sister could relax and drink hot chocolate. My sister had broken her wrist a few weeks prior to leaving and my mom's not a winter sports fan. I had been throwing myself down mountain slopes with about as much grace as a brick, with the tutor occasionally griping about said demeanor, and was exhausted. We had time for one more run, so we all waddled over to the T-bar machine. This imaginatively named device is a so-called metal bar shaped like an upside-down T that hooks below your butt and drags you upwards, so you're not constantly climbing for 10 minutes, skiing back down in a few seconds. Somehow, though, my jacket got caught on the bar, which knocked me to the ground. This is not the embarrassing part. It then dragged me along the snow, past where I was supposed to ski off, and carried along a very icy patch towards the mountain where it could turn back. Still not the embarrassing part. The embarrassing part was when the rough ice dragging me somehow managed to pull down the ski pants, thermals, and underwear, exposing my bare buns to the entire slope of people and giving me a nasty ice/friction burn all the way down my thigh. And the entire time I was screaming to get somebody to turn off the machine, and everyone saw. I was helped up and off the ice and skied down to the bigger lift to take me back to the hotel, and I cried the whole way. The real kicker was getting back, telling the family my story while sobbing through my wounded buns and pride, and having my dad and sister howl with laughter while my mom desperately tried to comfort me. Alright, so far I feel like a lot of the other ones have just been kind of embarrassing moments that you would cringe at for a while, but this one is like next level out of a sitcom embarrassing situation. The amount of things that had to go wrong to end up in this situation is absolutely flabbergasting, dude. And on top of it, just like screaming for people to turn off the machine, which in turn attracts more attention to just the debacle going on. Oh man, this is literally something out of a movie or sitcom. I did not expect this to happen in reality. My birthday party. I was about 15 years old and the kid knocks on the door, and when I answered, the kid's tooth was green from rot. It was a temporary cap, something, regardless, bright green. I just stared at him and he said hi, and I said tooth. I'm pretty sure we were both humiliated and we did not retain the friendship. I think this is literally everyone's worst fear, bro. Everyone's been talking to somebody that has like something gross in their teeth or like, you know, a green tooth, and you're just looking at it like, please don't say anything, please don't say anything, like in your mind, you know? The only difference is usually you get out of the conversation without mentioning it, dude. You usually don't open up with tooth. Oh, no one's gonna judge you for noticing it, but saying something, yeah, that's pretty embarrassing, man. I used to wait tables. During a busy Sunday post-church lunch rush, I had to make a sundae for a table in the very back corner of the restaurant. I get to the table and the entire party starts laughing. I'm standing there, holding the sundae, super confused. I look down and realize that somehow I had managed to get a large amount of whipped cream directly onto my crotch while preparing the sundae. Nowhere else on me, just there. All I could do was put the sundae down, say oh gosh, and speed walk through the entire restaurant to clean myself up. Yeah, I feel like at that point you just have to quit the job too, dude. Obviously an unfortunate accident. That being said, this is the universe's way of telling you that like maybe being a waiter really isn't for you, you know? At least the family was cool about it and giggled. There's something about messing up at work that makes it worse, dude. Like whenever I would make a mistake when I worked at the grocery store and somebody saw, like the shame I would feel was next level embarrassment. In high school, I was hanging out with my group of friends at lunch. One of our friends walked up wearing a suit and started talking to one of my other friends, and a few moments later he said, "All right guys, I'm gonna head out now, I'll be back tomorrow." So I replied, "All right man, have fun." He gave me a weird scowl look of betrayal, and you know, I didn't really know what I was looking at. Somehow it slipped past my radar that his girlfriend had developed a super rare disease and died in the span of a week. All my friends were looking at me with the widest eyes as he walked away, and in chorus everyone was like, "Dude." Listen, I'm not saying you're a bad friend, but I feel like forgetting that your friend's girlfriend died a week ago from a super rare disease is not something that a good friend would do. I feel like that's something that you kind of have to remember if you're even the slightest bit of a good friend. You know, all in all, I know you didn't mean any harm here, but like, oof, man, oof, yeah, I'm not surprised that your entire friend group hit you with the chorus of, "Dude." I've posted this nightmare before, but here it goes. I was in high school and heavily involved in drama and acting. I was looking for things to audition for outside of school, and my mom found an audition for a Renaissance fair. She insisted I audition, and I was being super picky. I didn't want to, but ended up agreeing. Rush forward, she tells me that auditions are in costume, and she bought me a really cheap, crappy costume from a party-esque website. The audition was at a really waspy country club, so I show up in costume, and I immediately want to die. I enter the country club, and I have no idea where the audition is. There's a ton of people there, they're staring at me, laughing like I'm a joke. I'm almost in tears, and finally I asked a worker, and they have no idea where they are. He gives me directions that make no sense, and I wander this place what feels like forever until I find the room. I enter, and the panel looks at me, repressing their laughter. I want to die at this point, and they say I am definitely looking the part and prepared for the audition. I was given an audition form and told to fill it out. I asked for a pen and they couldn't find one. So one guy takes this really expensive pen and gives it to me to borrow and says he needs it back because it's expensive. I leave the room and panic and cry and flee the country club with the guy's pen. F that. TLDR, I showed up to a Renaissance fair in cheap, crappy costume and got laughed at and stole a dude's pen. The worst part is, the audition was not in costume. I was waiting to go in with 3 other actors who were not in costume. Cringe. I feel like parents are supposed to set you up for success, and your mom did you incredibly dirty by telling you that you needed to be in costume for the audition, dude. Imagine walking through some like bougie country club dressed up like a Party City pirate. Oh man, the secondhand cringe is real. The one benefit you get from this story though is that like it's not on you. Yeah, embarrassing, horrible to think about, I'm sure, but it was like not like your idea to dress up like a pirate and go there, at least. When I was a teenager, I was a volunteer at a triathlon, and my job was to write athlete's number on both legs and arms with Sharpie. So here came a man, and I marked one leg, the other one, do his first arm and turn and ask him for the other, and he said, which was true, I only have one arm. I'm not really observant. Oh man, oh dude, these are starting to get a little bit soul crushing. I feel like Mario when he's trying to get across something and those giant stone things fall from the sky. Like that one hurt my inner workings, dude. In middle school, I used to have a bad habit of chewing on these pens that had sharp tips and came in red, black, and blue ink. I can't remember the brand, but they had a gray body and a little see-through window to see the ink left. Anyways, what I didn't know is that the tube in the body was slightly pressurized. And one day during class, I bit too hard on the pen, making it burst into my mouth. My teeth, tongue, and lips were stained blue for days, and everyone around saying I was involved with a Smurf. Honestly, man, I know this one's kind of unfortunate. That being said, bro, how did you not know it was the least bit pressurized? It wasn't pushing back at all. You ever chewed on a ballpoint pen? It's obvious that thing's not going to explode. I don't know what the pen was, but that being said, I feel like it had to have warned you a little bit. I'm about to pop. Pretty brutal though, you know, especially because if it happens at school, there's nothing that you can do, and obviously everyone's gonna start making fun of you for having a pen explode in your mouth because it's school and they'll make fun of you for anything. I ran into an old coworker at McDonald's. Our 10 years had overlapped by about a month, and that was several years ago. But he recognized me and called me over to his friend and told them this is the nicest guy I've ever met. In the next 3 minutes, I called him by the wrong name, asked him how he liked the job he never worked at, and it was pretty clear that I hardly remembered him. It was so embarrassing, and I was so embarrassed that I got my McDonald's and go to eat in the car. I'm halfway through my burger when him and his friends walk up and get into the car directly facing mine. We made awkward eye contact while I had my food in my hand, and they drove off. Well, if there's one bright side to this story, he's definitely not gonna call you the nicest guy he ever met again. I mean, I don't know, dude. If you only worked for the guy with the month, I don't know why you would, like, magically remember him. Obviously, he remembered you. He thinks you're basically the equivalent of Buddha, but, you know, he was only just a dude you worked with for a month. The fact that they were parked in the car across from you, though, is basically the cosmic way of adding insult to injury, though. We know you're trying to avoid him. We're gonna make sure you have to see him one more time. I was deathly afraid of public speaking in high school. When I had to give a speech in front of the class, my legs would shake and I would sweat profusely every time. We had to give oral book reports to the class in my senior English class, and I'm sitting in my chair, legs crossed, sweating with anticipation. The teacher called my name, and I let out a deep breath and went to stand up. I forgot to uncross my legs, so I tripped. But I don't trip, I stumble, trying to regain my balance. But instead, I start to pick up speed, tumbling for 10 feet before I fall. I get up as the whole class is staring, wrong. I slowly finished the walk up to the front of the class and said, well, the speech can't get any worse now. That moment helped me overcome my fear of public speaking though, and since then I give speeches in front of large crowds, no problem. There's a good life lesson, you know, if you ever hit rock bottom by face planting in front of your class before you give a presentation, it's not like anything you ever do after that while giving a speech will be more embarrassing. You can only go up from there. Seriously though, this is like, at least it has a bright side to it. Most of these is just an embarrassing memory you're stuck with. This one helped you get over your fear of public speaking. This one is like one of the only ones that ended up with a superpower because of the embarrassing moment. I was sleeping over at a girlfriend's house, and in the middle of the night I needed to pee. So I got up, went about my business, and went back to bed. In the morning, I woke up to a slender Burmese man. I was extremely confused and look in the doorway and see my girlfriend standing there signaling me out. TLDR, I accidentally slept with my girlfriend's dad. You just gotta be very grateful that, like, you were the person that woke up and noticed that and not the other way around. You know, you were able to put two and two together. He would have just woken up to a complete stranger in his bed and probably freaked out, rightfully so. Imagine you go to bed alone, you wake up to just some dude in your bed because he hopped into bed with you after he peed. That would be the most horrifying thing ever, man. You should just be very grateful that you did not end up waking him up. When I was in the Navy, I was standing watch in the engine room one day, or night, I don't remember. I was on a submarine and you end up kinda losing track of time. Anyways, it was during a workup for a reactor safety exam, so all the engineering department was tired from running drills during their off hours when they'd usually be sleeping. About halfway through my 6-hour watch, I had to poop, but I didn't want to wake someone to watch my stand while I pooped, so I held it in like a boss for 3 hours. Until my relief came. By the time I was screaming down the P-way to the watertight hatch, I had to go so bad I was almost puking. But the watertight hatch that separates the engine room from the forward compartment is 2 feet off the ground, too high for me to just bend my legs at the knees and scoot through. My anal clench is the only thing holding back this fecal maelstrom, so I undog the hatch. It's a big mechanism and takes a few seconds to open, and lift one leg to get through it. And at that moment, my colon unloads with a fury unmatched. Tube 1 had been launched, and the charge is currently running out of my boxers, out the leg of my coveralls, and onto the deck, and rolling inches to the horrified gaze of the rest of my watch team standing behind me. Through a strange mixture of embarrassment, shame, and nausea from having to poop so bad, I can't manage to say anything except oopsies. Luckily, I'm an engineer, so I have a rag in my back pocket, and I go to scoop it up, bending over, straight-legged, cheeks hugging like high school sweethearts. I walk through the hatch with poop in hand and head forward. The first room you hit when you head forward is the mess where most of the crew who is awake and not on watch hangs out, watches movies, play games, etc. Right now, it's full of off-going watchstanders having whatever meal is being served. I go to toss the rag in the trash, and one of my buddies who watched the whole thing unfold is standing there and shouts, "Hey Mikey, what are you doing? You can't throw poop in the trash," which is actually true. We compact all of our trash and jettison it, so anything that has liquid in it can't be compacted or it'll ooze out the side of the compactor and possibly squirt the poor kid that has to operate the machine. So I'm standing there, poop in my hand, half the crew there chewing on chicken staring at me in my bundle of joy, and that was the most embarrassing thing I think I've ever had to endure. I don't even know what to say about that one other than the fact that I'm very glad that I don't work on a submarine, because my goodness, that sounds mortifying. I just also love the idea of him standing mid-kitchen, poop in hand, in a rag, just being like, what do I do? Because what do you do in that situation? 20,000 leagues under the sea with a poop malfunction. 3rd grade show and tell. A classmate had brought a frog in for show and tell, and people were allowed to hold it if they wanted to. I thought I was really cool for being the only girl that was willing to do so. So I got the frog into my hands and then said, "Oh, how?" And that's when the frog jumped into my mouth. It was humiliation incarnate. Alright, definitely not as bad as having to hold poop in a submarine though. I mean, pretty rough, but all things considered, frogs are gonna do frog things like jump on people, you know. Hey, that one probably pretty smooth recovery. I'm guessing not a lot of people thought you were dumb for that. Especially because you still were the only person to hold the frog. You gotta give yourself credit. I went to the arcade with my significant other and his buddy. We ended up winning around 5,000 or 6,000 tickets and spent about $60 doing it. We were having an absolute blast. Meanwhile, a mutual acquaintance of mine and my significant other came up to us, and it was her son's birthday. This lady is usually very rude to us though, and she owes my business money, so I'm not very fond of her. She mentions that her son wants the disco ball prize, and I didn't give it a second thought until we went to cash in our tickets. I bought that damn disco ball and showed it to her on my way out. I can't believe I made a kid cry, but we did end up getting the check from her 2 weeks later. Alright, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, obviously this one's brutal because you just like totally dunked on this kid's dream of getting his favorite Chuck E. Cheese prize. That being said though, his mom shouldn't have owed your business money, you know what I mean? Like if you owe somebody a bunch of money and then you walk up to them and you're like, man, my kid would love that disco ball. You can't be surprised when they go get the disco ball and then are like, yeah, you wish you had this, where's my money? What's the dumbest thing you've ever heard? I have a friend who doesn't believe many things if he hasn't experienced them himself. For example, he told me he doesn't believe allergies are real, and when I asked why not, he said, well, I've never had them, it's all in people's minds. When I did my time in retail, our district manager was just like that, but dialed up to 11. For example, he thought natural disasters were no big deal and were overhyped by the media, and at one point we were having a company lunch. All the local store management and the district manager went to lunch at a restaurant. The TV over the bar in the news had what they were talking about, a hurricane that was about to make landfall in Florida, and they were in Texas. He proceeded to go on a rant about how hurricanes are no big deal, it's just some heavy rain, and all the people being evacuated and relocated were just people using it as an excuse to move on the government's dime. When asked how he can think that, he responded by saying you don't see him trying to move every time there's a hurricane. The dude lives in Kansas City. I love the idea of just because you've never seen something before, it just stops existing, you know? Hey guys, have you know I'm out here living in Las Vegas, and tornadoes no longer exist. Yeah, that's right, I've never seen one, so if you die to a tornado, no, you didn't. Like, what do you mean, bro? Just because you've never seen it doesn't mean it stops existing. Does the moon exist? Are other planets real? You know, there's plenty of things we know exist. I've also never seen a zebra in the wild. Does that mean that they only exist in zoos? I'm getting quiet now. Lay low when you reach zone, pipe down. Making out, stack the bread. Alright guys, what's poppin'? Today I'm back again with another video, and today we're going to be looking at an Ask Reddit thread full of the dumbest things people have ever had said to them or overheard. I figured it would make a pretty fun, entertaining video, so that being said, let's get into it, and be sure to press the like button, otherwise you're going to end up in this video for something dumb and you don't want that. Let's go. Had a guy I was working construction with say, I hope the sun comes up on that side today, pointing west, because it came up on this side and it was so hot, with us being on the east side of the building. Yeah, bud, that's not how the sun works. I was at a friend's place a year ago. We were in our late 20s, early 30s, and it was a farm on the prairies. Her not the sharpest tool in the shed boy toy was trying to determine which way was east, west, north, and south, and this was as the sun was setting. She points at the sun going down and says the sun sets in the west and rises in the, while turning and pointing the opposite direction. He thought real hard, and was very pleased when he proclaimed the correct answer, morning. I often hope he didn't procreate. I mean, technically the sun does rise in the morning. Did he at least get partial credit for that answer? I love that, man. Oh, I sure hope the sun doesn't always rise in the place where it always rises. That would suck. Well, I've got bad news, man. If that's your bar for things sucking, you're gonna have a very unfortunate couple decades. IT work a few years back. How did a director blow up after a day or two of trying to resolve a complete firewall issue that was affecting the finance department receiving invoices? And I quote, "Stop trying to figure out what the problem is and just fix it." I feel like that's when you give it the good old smack with the hammer approach, you know? Alright, you just want it fixed, you don't want me to figure out what the problem is, I'll just start doing stuff that might fix it. Just start randomly unplugging it in the middle of the workday, smack it with a hammer, you know, every now and then try to scare it, you know, just like, scream at it, freak everybody out. I would just start annoying my boss as much as possible if they said something that dumb, being like, I'm trying to fix it, boss, trust me, you told me not to figure out what was wrong, so I'm just gonna fix everything about it. In fact, let's just buy a new one. I work in the restaurant industry and I was refilling items on the breakfast buffet. This lady walks up to me and blurts out, "I want some of that," and points. Keep in mind this is during COVID and I don't want to be directly placing food onto people's plates, and we don't usually do it anyways. I gave her a polite response like, "Oh yeah, it's really tasty today." And then she asked me, "How do I get stuff over there?" and pointed across the buffet. I just looked at her and said, "You walk around the buffet." You really see the dumbest people in the services industry. I don't even know how you're supposed to answer that question, dude. Like, somebody walks into your store, like points across 10 feet away and says, "How do I get over there?" You're like, you walk over there? What did she want him to say? Oh, hold on, and then have him do like a combat roll over the top of the buffet, run over there, and like Tom Brady football pass whatever food item she had wanted? I'm just saying, man, you probably could have gone and gotten it yourself. That's the whole point of the buffet. A work colleague once asked me whether any of those ancient prophecies about the end of the world actually came true. Yeah, man, actually about a half an hour ago, all of them came true. The world's been over. We're just still here in the office punching paperwork, because what else would we want to do in the afterlife? Maybe he just really loved his job and thought he was already in heaven, you know? I'm not too sure. That being said, I feel like it'd be pretty obvious if the end of the world had already happened. World War III, baby, we're living in it. A friend of mine asked me why we didn't see stars when we flew over them. She truly believed that when you're flying on an airplane, you fly over the stars. I was speechless. I met a girl in college that thought the airplanes reach peak altitude and then turn off the airplane and glide the rest of the way, and yeah, she had flown before. You know, this one's slightly more understandable, only because not everyone knows how plane works. That being said, stars are a little bit higher up in the sky than the sky is. You know, we're flying through the atmosphere. I'm pretty sure stars are light years away. Otherwise, Buzz Lightyear would be here by now, bro. Are you kidding me? He's famous here. If he could have flown here in a quick little one-flight journey, he would be here. Also, I think all the planets that close to us might ruin things a little bit. You know, that might cause some gravitational issues. I used to work in Yellowstone. The amount of stupid stuff coming through the park is unimaginable. Had a bison come and lay down close to the boardwalk at Old Faithful, and a woman holding a toddler started running up to it. Luckily, I grabbed her by the back of the shirt and pulled her down. She kept screaming that she was going to sue me and the lodge for ruining her perfect photo, and then watched a 20-something walk out of the lodge in swimsuits to go soak in the pots that are boiling hot, and then telling another tourist that he could not walk off the boardwalk, and he became angry and demanded to be allowed to do this, and when this happens, we're on higher alert. We always had to watch tourists. They had IQs of like 10. Yeah, call me crazy, but I feel like a lady wanting to sue you for preventing her from being attacked by a bison's a little bit out there. I also love the guy that demanded to be able to walk off trail. The reason you can't walk off trail at the hot springs is because, you know, there's not much support underneath the hot springs, and there's a good chance you could fall through the floor into a pot of boiling magma or water. Not anything you want to be doing, dude. Trust me. I feel like if rules are in place at a tourist location, they're there for a reason. They don't want to make your vacation just suck. A supervisor told me once, you can only get sick if you want to be sick. Yeah, that's right, dude. Pandemic rates dropped to 0 because of this supervisor's super smart idea. I just am pretty sure that's not how it works. I think the whole thing about being sick is nobody wants to be sick. Who would choose to be sick if this was reality? Like, if you could just be like, go away. Like, why would you ever let it yourself be sick? Oh, you're studying computer science. You must be playing a lot of games. Lucky you. Funnily enough, this is something a past school administrator I've known was always wary of, but in the sense that he dreaded people would apply for information technology at the school in hopes it involved video games. The admin talked with each pupil personally to give a rough overview of what IT involves and that it's not about computer games, and I found it genuinely surprising that pointing it out was needed, but oh well, your comment shows it perfectly why that happened. I love the idea of someone just signing up for a career and doing literally no research into what it entails and just hoping that there's video games. He's like, yeah, you know, I did sign up to build bridges. I'm really hoping there's some Call of Duty involved. And everyone's like, you didn't look? He's like, nope, just gonna assume. I feel like information technology is so broad. Chances are you're gonna end up helping a 67-year-old man figure out an Excel document, not like playing the new Battlefield and giving your opinions for millions a year. I don't know, if that's what you expected and that's why you're going into computer science, you got another thing coming. I'm from New Mexico and was once told that my English is excellent, and I've also been asked for my green card once. I live in New Mexico currently, and one time my mom was on the phone with a lady and they argued with her about whether or not New Mexico is in the United States. She then proceeded to argue with my mom about how Albuquerque is spelt. Like, okay, my mom lives in Albuquerque during this time, she should know more than anyone. I have a lot of family in New Mexico, and the amount of people that have been like, oh, you're going out of the country when I said I was going there is a little bit bizarre. New Mexico is a state, guys. It's one of the 50, all right? I know that there's 50. That's a lot of things you gotta know, but those are the important things to know. It's so funny to me, dude. Your English is so great. You were born in New Mexico? It's like, yeah, that's America. You don't want to make everyone in New Mexico angry, all right? They'll be dropping Hatch green chili bombs from their hot air balloons by noon. I'm never gonna quit smoking cigarettes. My aunt was healthy until she quit, and then she was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. This was said to be my manager at a Domino's Pizza. I didn't have the time or energy to explain to a man 3 decades my senior that she probably had cancer for a while, but didn't go to the doctor until she felt withdrawal from nicotine. So we finished our cigarettes and went back to slinging pizzas. I quit smoking and delivering pizza not long after. I had an uncle that would smoke cigarettes like a chimney, dude, and he would always be like, oh, I have such a bad cough. Well, yeah, man, you're 9 packs deep of Marlboro Reds this morning. Maybe you should slow down. You could probably breathe a little better. Seriously, that man single-handedly probably contributed more to pollution than like in most major cities. Moral of the story, though, don't smoke, kids. It's bad. I had a classmate in high school biology that said she wanted to move to Australia. When asked why, she said, I want to look out my window and see giraffes in my yard. No amount of convincing or documentation would convince her that giraffes were in Africa and not Australia. Similar vein, but less stupid because he admitted he was wrong. My high school physics teacher thought I made up narwhals. In his defense, I absolutely had a penchant for drawing weird, made-up creatures whenever the moment presented itself. We had to do a sock puppet show to explain something I don't remember, and I chose to make narwhals for my puppets because it was 2010 and I thought it was funny. He asked me if the creatures in my presentation were creatures I made up or if they were from mythology, and I'll never forget the projector pulled up to the Wikipedia page on narwhal and my teacher scrolling through going, this is crazy, I thought you made it up. I just love it because it's a physics teacher, dude. He's like out here explaining gravity to people. Meanwhile, the sheer existence of narwhal like breaks his reality, you know? He just starts seeing things as if it's in a different dimension like Doctor Strange. Seriously, man, narwhals are pretty weird though, I guess. Like what other things are just running around with a unicorn horn sticking out of the top of them? Rhinos? Like what? 2 for 2 out of everything on the planet just running around being majestic like a unicorn. I guess that is something magical you don't see every day. You go, physics teacher, you go. I almost said psychic teacher. I don't think that's what that meant. My old roommate pointed a laser thermometer at a pencil on the table inside the house. The thermometer read 68. This thing's broken. I asked why he thought it was broken. Well, it's a pencil. It doesn't produce any heat, so this thermometer should say 0. I stared at him for a few seconds, unable to collect my jaw off the floor. Well, 0 would mean it's frozen, or well beyond frozen, so I think 68 is the temperature of the air in the room. This man was 26, and his 2 adult brothers were sitting in the room, and I was the only one who understood why the thermometer was correct. Nah, man, you don't understand. Everything around you is just 0 degrees, okay? You know, we're living in a new ice age. The temperature on everything has dramatically plummeted. Obviously, things are just gonna read like the temperature of the air if you're shooting it with a laser thermometer and it's just been sitting there. Honestly, this one only cracks me up because, like, this dude's thermostat has to be the most confusing concept ever to his roommates. They just look at it, they're like, I don't understand. How does it heat up the air if the air itself does not produce heat? Coworker overheard another coworker and I discussing how awful it would be for bees to become extinct and interjected with, who cares? When I started explaining what that meant for crops and plants, he cut me off to vow that he would be perfectly fine eating meat. When I asked him what he thought would happen to livestock when there wasn't enough plants to feed them, I swear I could see through his eyes into the back of his skull. You know, our education system has gone increasingly downhill when, like, adults don't understand simple cause and effect anymore, you know? Alright, well, bees pollinate flowers, which has a lot to help, you know, boosting crop yields and all that stuff. They make plants grow, animals eat plants, so if bees go bye-bye, no plants, no animal, no food, right? But no. See, that's too many steps. Like, there's so many people that are currently walking around that just can't understand that if you take part 1 out of the equation, part 4 doesn't work anymore. Why do we need farms, man? We have grocery stores. Not me, but a friend of mine traveled to the US with her family when she was younger. Upon hearing her family's accent, an American said, "Where are you guys from?" And the answer was Australia. And the person confidently responded with, "Ah, and which state is that?" I feel like in this situation, you're almost obligated to, like, just convince this person of some really stupid information. If they're dumb enough to not realize that Australia isn't a state, right, that's on them. So now I think it would be hilarious if you convince them that Australia is just like a part of Kentucky. You know, oh yeah, you know Australia, it's a region in Kentucky, and they're like, yeah, no, for sure, I'm familiar with that. And then for the rest of this person's life, they're just 100% convinced that Australia is in Kentucky. We know they're never fact-checking this, are you kidding me? Can think of 2 things off the top of my head. When asked which way was north, I witnessed somebody pointing up at the sky. And one time someone rang my phone asking for John, and when I said he had the wrong number, he asked if I was sure. Oh, my mistake, buddy. Turns out I am John after all. Honestly, if he's going to insist that you are John and that he didn't get the wrong phone number, maybe this is wrong, but just be like, yeah, you got me, I am John, what's up? And then just never pass along the message. Next time he sees John, he's gonna be like, bro, that was really rude when you ignored my phone call. John, what phone call? Next thing you know, he's gonna start believing it when somebody says that they got the wrong phone number, because he's gonna be looking stupid trying to argue with John. Why is Alaska cold and Hawaii hot if they're both next to each other? The girl I was in the military with. Some US maps have Alaska on its own frame next to Hawaii to save space, and she thought Alaska was its own frozen island next to Hawaii. If I remember correctly, she also believed lions were males and tigers were females of one species. Everybody knows that Alaska is frozen and Hawaii is not, and they're right next to each other is because Alaska is where they shot Frozen on location, you idiots. Like, they had to freeze a lot of stuff. Come on, Disney's got the money to do it. Seriously though, I don't know how you resist convincing people asking these types of things that, like, that's the reality instead. No, yeah, you are 100% right. Alaska is an island. Just prep them for that. Let them go the rest of their life arguing that Alaska's an island. That's hilarious. Conversation I had in the break room at work. My doctor says I need to eat more iron. Isn't that like a metal? Why would I eat metal? I don't think he knows what he's talking about. Yeah, you're right, your doctor's a moron. You know, all that medical school he went to, that was just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. They just go through that to get a degree and make themselves feel smarter than everybody. They don't actually learn anything for the entire time that they're in medical school. That's ridiculous. I mentioned to someone that I was raising money to dig a well in Malawi, and she said, why don't you just send them faucets? Because faucets don't just magically create water. The water still has to come from somewhere. Nah, dude, if you've ever just taped a faucet to a wall and turned it on, just starts producing water. There's literally no work involved. You idiots have been digging wells for all the wrong reason. This person here is the genius who discovered unlimited free water for everybody. Just tape a faucet to a wall. There was a carpenter renovating the office next to ours. My boss went next door and yelled at him, "You should do this after hours. Do you like listening to hammering and sawing all day while you're at work?" And the carpenter said, "Actually, yes, I do." I had this happen to me when I used to run data cable. I had a doctor's office, they needed me to cut a hole for the faceplate, and the head nurse came running around the corner screaming that we're trying to keep this place quiet, but you're making all this racket cutting holes in the wall. My site manager and I looked at each other and politely responded, "We can come back and finish later." She ran away screaming bloody murder. A doctor leaned into us and whispered, "You wouldn't think something that small could be louder than jigsaw and drywall." The carpenter's like, "Yeah, dude, that's kind of my entire thing, you know? I come here, I build stuff, I make loud noises, I swing my hammer, so by all means, if y'all want to whip out the saws, it's perfectly accustomed to my ears." I remember one time my dad was working the saw, like, in the garage, and our neighbor came out and started screaming at him about how would he feel if he did that. My dad kind of had a similar response, like, "Alright, go ahead, I didn't know you had a saw, but by all means." Anyways, guys, I think that's gonna do it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, I would really appreciate you guys taking a second to press the like button. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought, or of course subscribe if you're new, and turn on those notifications. What's going on, guys? It's your boy Scrub here, back again with another video. Hope you guys are having a great day. I know I am. And today I've got a video I know you guys are going to enjoy. I found a thread of the cringiest moments people have ever experienced in their life, and trust me when I tell you, it's some of the most painful cringe I've ever experienced. There were a few times where I wanted to crawl inside my own mouth and eat myself until I eventually stopped existing and became a black hole due to the density of the situation. It's a genuinely horrifyingly cringe-inducing experience, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it, so yeah, without further ado, let's get into it, but press the like button. Here's one thing I hate about grocery store lines. They're all separate. I would much prefer that everyone wait in a single line and move to the next available cashier like in customs, because we all know how much we hate waiting in line and seeing everyone around us go so much quicker. Well, I was having a particularly bad day, and I chose a particularly slow line in the grocery store. Ridiculously slow. Like, the line is twice as long next to us, and it was sailing through, whereas I wasn't moving at all. And then I realized the problem. The cashier was a jerk, and was taking his sweet time swiping groceries one at a time, using only one hand, and he didn't care. He was some teenager with a scowl on his face, probably forced to work there by his parents. And finally, I'd had enough, and I snapped that this line is huge, and things would go a lot quicker if you use two hands. The two people in front of me turned and stared with looks of horror and disgust, and finally the cashier, with a totally blank look, turned to me as well. His left arm had been amputated at the shoulder. Bro, oh my goodness gracious. That has to be the worst story I've ever heard. This is why you should just keep your mouth shut and not say anything till you have all the facts of the situation. Context matters. You probably would have realized that was a very stupid thing to say if you would have looked for like 2 more seconds and understood the situation. This poor guy is trying his best, bro, to like do his job as a cashier. It's probably difficult if you're in his situation. This jerk is just screaming at him, bro. I'm surprised nobody in the line smacked you in the back of the head for that comment. I understand it wasn't your intention, but goodness gracious, that hurts. I went camping with some friends once and we ate some mushrooms. At one point I had to go to the bathroom, so I went to the bathroom on the campground, did my business, and went back to the campsite. I grabbed a beer from the cooler and it was a Bud Light, and I thought that was weird because I don't drink Bud Light and neither do my friends. I just wanted something cold in my mouth and I didn't care, and I sat down at the fire and started drinking my beer and realized everyone had gone quiet and was staring at me. First, I was like, why aren't you guys talking? Did I fart? And then, why are you staring at me like that? And then it clicked. Oh my god, you're not my friends. Where am I? I went to the wrong campsite and just plopped my tripping butt down at the fire with a family of 4, a husband, wife, and 2 kids, and they just looked horrified. I'll never forget the looks on their faces, and this was years ago, so maybe the kids are on Reddit now. If so, and you're reading this, I'm sorry for ruining your camping trip. Bro, this family's always gonna have the wildest story about how one time we were camping and this insane man jumped out of the woods, grabbed a beer from the cooler, and sat down and started trying to talk to us until he realized his mistake and ran away. I don't know what he was on, but it was terrifying. Like, bro, from their perspective, this has to be one of the scariest experiences ever. The next morning, they were just hurriedly packing up their camp to get out of there as fast as they can. Honey, I don't want to deal with the crazy people that live in the woods around here again. He drank all of my beer. How funny would it be if in the reply to this was someone being like, hey, that was me and my family. Thanks for scaring the crap out of us. Oh, I've done something similar to this. I had gotten hooked on Rubik's Cubes during college, and I carried that thing everywhere, playing with it as I walked to and from class. So I walk into my dorm building, up the stairs to my room, mostly focused on the Rubik's Cube, and I open the door, walk through the kitchen, and notice a girl doing something in the fridge. No biggie, she was probably with one of my roommates, so I open the door to my room and immediately start noticing something strange with the decor. And then I noticed 2 girls in the room sitting on either bed, and it hit me. I started backing out, blurting explanations, and to this day I still remember the horrified look on the girl at the refrigerator's face as I backed past her. They followed me to the door and slammed it in my face, partially pushing me out with it. And then the screaming started. To this day, I don't know why they started screaming, but they did, and I got out of there. And later heard from a friend on the floor the girl's RA was looking for me. Bro, I understand it was an accident, but the whole I don't know why they started screaming, a total stranger just walked into their dorm room, man. What do you think they were screaming for? Like excitement that a stranger just broke into their room? I don't think so. Also, do people just not keep their door locked anymore? Like, if anything, this entire video should just remind you, keep your door locked. Not just because of burglars and serial killers, but also because apparently Rubik's Cubes are so good at distracting people that someone might accidentally break into your house. I don't know why they were screaming. Probably the stranger standing in their kitchen, if I had to venture out and make an educated guess. When I was 10, my dad and his co-workers were over at our house with their families for a Christmas party. My mom was doing the whole hostess thing and had been stressed out, and I went to use the bathroom in the middle of the party and it stung something fierce. Being 10 and a social idiot, I then walked out into the room with the party going on and yelled while waving my hands in a smelly motion, "Woo, who made the bathroom stink so bad?" My poor, horrified, and embarrassed mom's face when admitting that it was her. Oh man, your mom's out there like being an incredible host for the party, you know, she's got the hors d'oeuvres on deck, man. She's got games, she's got the music bumping, everything's going incredible, outruns her son. Who took a massive dump? I had to break it up with the poop knife, man. Son, that was me. That was me, dude. Like, I love that they made her admit to it too. Did the entire party stop and start trying to figure it out. I feel like if I was at a party and like the host kid ran out of the bathroom and said something like that, I would just ignore it and just pretend I didn't hear anything. Not because it's not funny, it would be hilarious, I'd remember it, but I'm just saying I would be like, I don't want whoever stunk up the toilet to get embarrassed that hard. Was this entire party just shaming the mother? Was it you? Did you poop Darlene? Darlene's poops are massive, guys, I'm telling you. Darlene's poops are huge. When I was in high school, I was sitting with my ex-girlfriend before class started. I was building a motorcycle in auto shop, and I had brought a large chrome-plated castle nut to school with me to finish attaching the wheel to the frame. Well, we were goofing around, and I thought it would be cute if I slid the lug nut onto her ring finger. Then, after the novelty wore off, it quickly dawned upon me that this guy was not gonna slide off. The threads of the nut were tearing into her skin every time we pulled, like a sadistic Chinese finger trap. So first, I went to my shop teacher, and we tried to use motor oil to get it off, a painful and unfruitful venture, which only led to me being insulted by my favorite teacher. So I had to go with her to the principal's office and explain what happened, and then she went to the hospital, and I went with her and watched as the fire department cut this super hard lug nut off her hand while all the firefighters laughed and insulted me. The nut kept heating up and burning the skin because metal gets very hot when being cut, so this lasted quite a while. Yeah, I understand why she's your ex, man. Like, I know it wasn't your intention, but I feel like after somebody gets a metal thing stuck on you for hours and then everyone's just roasting him, pointing out how stupid it was for a prolonged period of time, it's not gonna make you look incredible, dude. Plus, if you actually did end up marrying her, like when you're proposing, she'd probably have a PTSD flashback. Please don't keep it stuck on my finger. I don't want the fire department to have to cut it off again. You're like, honey, I'm actually proposing. I'm sorry. I just don't trust any ring that you've got. Sorry. I really just, I want to marry you, but I can't trust the ring. This is some next level cringe, bro, especially because, like, how did she explain that to her parents? Oh, my boyfriend's an idiot. Sorry, I had to go to the hospital. Here's the giant medical bill. I'm sure they were thrilled as well. That would be my speech class in college. When the one and only week we would be videotaped, I began my demonstration by taking a bite out of a peanut butter sandwich, and likely, due to a combination of nerves, dry mouth, dry sandwich, and lack of rehearsal, was unable to swallow and spent half my time limit choking on the sandwich. I love how they just kept recording you and kept the, like, timer going. That seems kind of brutal, to be honest. Like, it's a speech class, you take a bite out of the sandwich, you start choking, no one jumps up to give you the Heimlich, no one stops the timer, he dies the way he deserves, failing. Like, goodness gracious, dude, I would be more concerned after the fact at realizing that basically nobody in my class actually cared whether or not I had the ability to breathe. Oh, he's alright, he'll get through it, anytime now, oh, and he's turning blue, okay, well, alright, anytime now, anytime. When I was around 14 years old, I used to play video games all day. Actually, a certain MMORPG, which was not WoW. So my mother made me go to group therapy for gaming addicted people. We make our way there and I enter a room full of people at least twice my age, and after the door was locked to have a secure location to talk, it hit me. The German term for gaming addiction can refer to gambling as well. So here I was, 14 years old, in a room full of people who have lost their possessions and family over a severe gambling addiction that has ruined their lives, and they make me talk about my gaming addiction. Lots of fun. Bro, did your mom do no research before she took you there? I feel like gaming addiction usually has been gambling. Maybe that's just because I live in Las Vegas, so like I just kind of knew what it was already. Oh, but that would be brutal, dude. Some 40-year-old man is like, and that's when I took out the 4th mortgage on my house, bet it all on the 9th horse at the Kentucky Derby, lost everything, and my wife left me and took the kids. And you're like, damn, bro, that's crazy, but did you get a good respawn? Like, oh my goodness. You know, they were sitting around so pissed off when he starts talking about, so I was trying to min-max my warlock. Bro, we're talking about gaming addiction, not video game addiction. This one happened last week. I saw a new guy at the office walking to the exit a few feet ahead of me, and he was using the same backpack I was. So I said, hey, nice backpack. And he turned around to me and said, huh? And I repeated, nice backpack, while I took mine off to show him it was was the same. Except it wasn't. Not even close. Oh, bro, he just thinks you're like a guy who's really into backpacks now. Oh, yeah, there's this guy in my office who apparently has a huge thing for backpacks. I was walking out one day, he complimented mine and then took his off for some reason to show me. I was like, cool, bro, nice Paw Patrol backpack. I'm not really sure what you want me to do with that. I had an oral examination board when I was in the Navy, during which I just completely froze up and forgot everything I knew about what I was getting examined on. I could barely get a coherent strings of words out. 3 hours of me just sitting there like a jerk while my captain and 2 more of my supervising officers just asked me questions I couldn't answer while looking at me like I was the stupidest man alive. It was excruciating and the most spectacular failure of my whole life. I'd spent months preparing and it just looked like I'd done no work at all. Suffice to say, my performance was so bad I got carpeted and did not get a second chance. No idea what happened to me. I could answer most of the questions now, no sweat, and I ended up leaving the Navy very soon after that. Everyone's had a brain fart. Everyone's been tripped up on their words, you know? Like, I do it at least 3 times a video. Talking is hard. But you're telling me you had a brain fart for 3 hours? Man, you gotta see a doctor, I think. There's probably something going on with the memory there. Thank you for being in the Navy and all, but I think you might have a deeper memory issue if you had a 3-hour-long brain fart. I went to visit my grandparents in Delaware when I was 15, and my grandmother drove me out to the Jolly Rogers amusement park. She didn't go on many of the rides, so I was always going up in line alone, and I was last in line for the bumper cars, and of course, there were no cars left when I got to the front. I watched people have fun for 5 minutes as I waited, and no one else got in line behind me. Their fun ended and it was my turn, and the operators let me get in a car and switch the ride on. I was hoping at least one of them would ride around too, but no, they just watched me sit there. So I started driving in circles and ramming empty cars, and this was going on a line started building up again. I saw those people in line and sat there again for a bit, looking from the line to the people in charge of the ride, but nothing. I continued to drive in circles for the longest 5 minutes of my life as the line got longer and longer. My timer ends and the cars shut off, and I'm sat there thinking I get another go since that was pretty stupid of them. And nope, they came up to me asking for more tickets. Of course I had none left and had the saddest, loneliest walk-off of one of my previously favorite amusement park attractions. Yeah, that probably is up there as one of the most awkward 5 minutes I've ever heard of. You're just alone, spending your time driving in circles in an empty bumper car track or like arena, whatever it's called. And there's a bunch of people in line watching you for 5 minutes straight. Bro, I would just get up and leave mid-ride. I don't even care, man. They can yell at me if they want. Also, really messed up of them to come over and be like, you got more tickets? Why didn't they just stop the ride as soon as more people showed up? I feel like letting the ride go with one person just makes literally no sense in the first place. I don't know what the rules are, but like, it should have been obvious that that's no fun for the person that's driving the bumper cars. Alright, you have fun driving these cars with nobody else. The entire point is to crash into others, but just crash into the cars that are parked still. It's the same fun. I threw a huge tantrum in kindergarten because it was a foot-long hot dog day and I had packed a lunch. I threw such a large tantrum that my mom came to the school with lunch money just so I could get a hot dog, which then promptly gave me some of the worst food poisoning of my life. Karma didn't even want to give you a chance to enjoy the hot dog. It was like, oh, you want to throw a tantrum and make your mom come down to the school so you can buy a hot dog? All right, you're going to have a very, very unpleasant time. Also, I feel like school cafeteria food is notoriously sketchy. I would be more scared than I would be excited if the school cafeteria had a foot-long hot dog. You know how much they already try to cheap out on food? You know how much they would have to cheap out on a foot-long hot dog? Apparently enough to give the entire school food poisoning. There was once a technician at our house in order to fix a water heater about 2 years ago. I was walking by the bathroom and heard the toilet flush, so I decided to lean flat against the wall by the door in order to scare my brother. And boy, did I give him a fright. But as you may have guessed, it wasn't my brother. I was 21 at the time, and it was super awkward and cringe embarrassing. Thinking back now, the look on that guy's face was priceless when I yelled in his face the moment he opened the door. I bet you his life flashed before his eyes, man. Like, imagine, you're making a house call, you're just trying to fix someone's water heater, you use the bathroom, you come out, and the second you open the door, someone's screaming in your face. You're like, oh, okay, this house is owned by a crazy person. This is how I go out. Imagine having to explain it. Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you were my brother. Oh, so you usually wait outside the bathroom and listen to your brother use the restroom? Well, no, when you put it that way, it's like, okay, so you just wanted to scare me because I'm the water heater guy? No, I didn't know it was you. All right, man. All right, whatever. On the bright side, he probably tells this story whenever people are like, what's the weirdest thing you've ever seen while you're trying to fix someone's water heater? One time, a guy tried to scare me after I took a massive dump. When I was younger, I was obsessed with Phantom of the Opera and decided to reenact it with my parents as the supporting actors. I made a mask out of white paper plates, wore a cape, and tried to perform the musical numbers as my mom filmed. College was a strange time. It's even funnier with that last sentence, college was a weird time. I'm just imagining like some 20-year-old getting so obsessed with a musical that they start making masks out of paper plates. Like, that's just such a little kid craft to me, no offense. I feel like these tapes are something that every reaction commentator could make a good video on. Just some dude being like, Phantom of the Opera, in like a paper plate mask with his beard. You know your mom's gonna tell everyone this story for the rest of your life. Every time you don't want to be embarrassed, she's gonna be like, oh my goodness, my son's so talented. One time he made a mask and performed the whole musical. Sure, he was off key and the mask was made out of a paper plate, but it's the thought that counts. The Phantom of the Opera would have been very, very proud. It's not something I did, but back in primary school, we used to have assemblies every Monday for the whole school. And because my school was a public school and not wealthy, we didn't have a hall. So we all grabbed our chairs and would take them to a big sheltered area that we had. And about 20 minutes into the assembly, a kindergarten kid arrives, and the principal stops her announcement and asks the kid why he's late in front of the whole school, and the kid yells out, I did a big poo. Everyone laughed except that kid. See, doing something like this would suck because then you get the nickname like Poo Boy, and it just sticks until you graduate high school or move, whichever one comes first, you know? He's just gonna be on the grind trying to graduate at 14 so he can stop being known as Poo Boy. I've always hated when teachers and principals would do this, though, the whole like, well, where were you when you're late? Well, do you really want to know? What if I had a medical emergency? What if I pooped my pants? What if I just didn't feel like coming? It's really none of your business. I'm here now. Like, I understand that technically they're allowed to ask, but really, if someone's late for something, chances are there's probably a good reason. Not every time. Sometimes people just suck. But I feel like if it, on the off chance it's a really good reason, like let's say they're late because they had a medical emergency, you really want to call them out, bro. Oh, why are you late? I had a heart attack. Thanks, Dan. I was in the lobby of a guest house in Thailand waiting for our car to pick us up. The manager was a very small lady who was standing with us, and she had been so lovely to us during our stay. She spoke very little English, but when the car pulled up, she raised her arms to me as I stood up, and I assumed she wanted a hug from me, so I obliged. Even though I recalled it was impolite to hug a Thai person. Turns out she was gesturing for me to pull the cord on the ceiling fan in order to turn the fan on because she couldn't reach it and I was tall. Super awkward. I don't know if it's rude to hug people in Thai culture. I know like people have different customs and whatnot. If it is rude, that makes this entire thing even funnier that you just like unintentionally insulted her as you were leaving after she had been nice to you for the stay. Hey, please turn on that lamp for me. Just like goes in for the hug. Okay, I'm not really down for this. This is super weird. Please let go. I just don't think you can ever go back now. Like that's just a very awkward thing. I'm sure you could go back, but it would be a little bit awkward. You walk in, oh, the man who hugged me. I was 14 years old and at a basketball game, and I had bought a raffle ticket to win the $10,000 half-court shot at halftime. My number was drawn, and I remember trying to get my dad to do it for me, but he pressured me into walking down to the court. And with thousands of people watching me in the audience and X amount of people from home, I took the half-court shot and airballed it about 10 feet to the left and 5 feet over the backboard. And it was the longest walk back up into the stands and into the seats where my dad was laughing maniacally at me. That's a very dad move to just be laughing at you after you made this giant mistake and missed out on the $10,000 half-court shot. Almost like that was low-key what he was hoping for. That's just a very dad thing to do, you know? My dad would have done the same thing. You've got it. I missed. I turned around. He's just like, hey, you missed, but it was funny for me. It's even worse that there's thousands of people watching, dude. You go to school the next day, someone's like, yo, bro, I saw you airball that half-court shot last night. I bet you're not too thrilled to miss out on that money. Oh, thanks, man. You were there? Sweet, sweet. Glad to know that moment will live on forever. Today I messed up by making my dad punch a stripper in Grand Theft Auto and then tearfully ask God for forgiveness in front of my entire family. When I was young, my brothers and I snuck a copy of San Andreas into the house and we spent days holed up in the basement taking turns playing. And down there, my parents didn't bother us too much, and in order to get tons of money for weapons, we had yet to figure out my parents' dial-up passwords so cheats weren't a thing. We would go to the strip club and stand on the stage, absorbing the money the dudes threw at the woman and then let the game sit for 10-20 minutes. We had to be careful though, because sometimes the strippers would do a move and bump into CJ and the bouncers would shoot the place up. One day while I was playing, my mom yelled down to the basement at us to get ready because we were going to Pizza Hut, and in a stroke of genius, I drove to the GTA strip club, got up on stage and turned off the TV, and we left. It was to be the heist of the century. My dad, however, was at church at this time, practicing for a gospel concert he was singing in. He always filmed the practices so he could take notes at home upon playback, and this time was no different. While my mom and brothers and I were still at the hut, he arrived home and plugged in the camcorder into the VCR, and we had just one VCR and it was connected to the basement TV. Back at the hut, my mom gets a phone call, puts her napkin down and slowly looks around the table and says okay a few times into the phone, in this really calculating, specific way that she always did when she knew we were in trouble before we did. Naturally, at this point, we knew we were in trouble, but for what, we didn't know. After a very quiet minivan ride, we get home and my mom says, "Boys, why don't we go downstairs to the basement? Your dad wants to show you his gospel practice downstairs." It was at this point we knew why we were in trouble. We drag our feet downstairs and lo and behold, my dad is sitting on the couch, TV on, a stripper's polygonal boobies swung stiffly back and forth on screen to In Vogue's My Lovin', with CJ standing mere inches away collecting money. My dad starts in, "Boys, I don't even know where to begin. This PlayStation was a blessing to you for Christmas, and this is how you repay us, by breaking our trust?" He's holding the controller up now, gesticulating with it. Here I am, practicing to bring glory to God, but he was cut off as he inadvertently squeezed the controller, causing CJ to punch the stripper. My entire family stands in silence watching together as the bouncers in the strip club shoot the place up for what seems to be like an eternity. After it stops, CJ appears in front of the hospital, and I look back and see my mom silently weeping into her hand. I look at my dad as a single tear rolls down his cheek and prays under his breath. After another eternity of silence without a word, my dad bends down, disconnects the PlayStation, walks back to the computer, disconnects it, goes in his car, and drives away. And for the next 4 months, he kept the PS2 and PC locked up in his office at work, and it's one of my favorite memories of growing up. I miss my brothers. Bro, the way that he described that was so funny. I'm sorry for laughing so much while I was reading that. I'm just imagining giving this big serious speech about how our trust has been broken and we thought you were responsible enough for the console. He just right hooks the stripper and then GTA does the GTA thing and gets insanely violent. My goodness. Bro knew he was in trouble at the Pizza Hut, but on the bright side, got a story for a lifetime, man. I feel like, this is not a good thing. I feel like every kid had played GTA when they weren't supposed to. Maybe it's just me and this guy, but I feel like every time I would go over to a friend's house and they had GTA, we would sneak and play it because we thought it was the coolest thing ever. My significant other and I were meeting some old friends of hers that were in town for a day or two. I say in town because they were an hour and change south of us. We met at the restaurant after a bit of the drive, and it was a hot day and my air conditioning was on the fritz, so it made sense I was really thirsty. What doesn't make sense is at some point after we got there, I just started drinking this dude's Coke like it was mine. It was kind of in front of me, I guess, but I hadn't ordered a soda, so I had no reason to assume it was mine. They'd never met me, so it's not like I knew them and I knew it was cool, and no one said a word the whole time. I realized I had been doing it when the waitress came around and asked for our drink orders, and yeah, it was the best first impression ever. I mean, listen, grabbing someone else's drink and drinking it is cringe, and I can understand it's embarrassing, but also kind of on them for not saying anything. I feel like if I was at dinner and someone grabbed my drink, I would be like, yo, that's mine. It's not confrontational. I don't think the person should get offended that you're pointing out that the drink isn't theirs. Why did they not say anything? They just get in the car. I can't believe her boyfriend drank my Coke without asking. Did you say anything? No. Well, then that seems like your problem. Hide and seek during a family party. 12-year-old me decided to hide in the bathtub, and I pulled the shower doors closed and waited. No one found me, but within 2 to 3 minutes, my aunt came in to take a leak, and she didn't notice me, and I kept quiet too long, and I had to commit. The sound of her piss trickle still haunts me to this day. Oh God, why? Yeah, you've gotten to know your aunt a little bit too good now. I don't really understand why you wouldn't say something before she started using the restroom. That being said, once she's already using the restroom, you're right. Like, it's already too late, you just have to commit, because it'd be more awkward if you popped out of the shower while she was peeing, like a really bad surprise party. She's like, I went away on a school trip with a bunch of people to participate in an art competition. It was a week long and I looked forward to it quite a bit, and I needed to preface the story with the fact I'm someone who rarely cries and I'm not usually emotional about trivial things. Anyways, we arrived at the place and I found suddenly that I wanted to go home. I wasn't interested in what we were doing, the accommodations sucked, and to my unending embarrassment, I started crying one day and I could not stop. I remember being bewildered by my sudden onset of tears and not being able to stop it. One teacher was incredibly concerned and was convinced something terrible had happened and I was keeping it to myself. The stupid, lame reason was that I simply did not want to be there. Somehow, years of not really crying hard at anything burst forth and I cried periodically for 2 days. My mom called me and something she said just made me stop, and after that I had fun and I'm still kinda stumped what that was about and I cringe every time I remember it. On the ominous side, that incident was the last time I cried that I can remember, and even more embarrassingly, I was 15 when that happened. Not 10 as you might think, and I'm 20 now and I shudder to think what random incident might prompt my next tier festival. Dude, imagine you're just like on a trip, right? You're talking to your friend, all of a sudden they start crying and they just don't stop for the next few days. I understand that teacher probably got annoying, but I get why they thought something horrible happened. They were probably like, oh my goodness, I can't even imagine what they're going through. They've been crying for 9 days straight. Plus, at least your teachers cared enough to check in. I feel like if I was ever on a trip with most of my teachers and I was crying for 2 days, they probably wouldn't even have noticed. Today I messed up by thinking my car's Bluetooth wasn't working. I work in a pretty chill kitchen. We don't serve food at the location where I work, so things are pretty relaxed and we don't have to wear anything in particular. We can listen to music while we work and have a staff meal and so forth. Generally, how things go is that all the staff will finish the day together and leave at the same time, which sometimes entails leaving a little bit later than foreseen. Also important is that I'm something of a middle manager, let's say, so I have responsibilities and accesses that other staff don't have, but I still have quite a few people above me in the pecking order. Today, I was a bit huffy about something that happened. It wasn't really anything major, but it did mean that when my shift ended, I just wanted to be out, told my boss I was leaving, clocked out, grabbed my bag, and went to my car. Since I wasn't in a good mood, I decided to just put my Spotify favorites playlist on and let that play out. We had been listening to some weird bluegrass all day, and I'm into weird stuff other people don't like that generally doesn't go together, so I was pumped to be able to finally play the good stuff. So I turn on the first song, and nothing. It says it's playing, and the tracker is moving, but no sound's coming out, and I try turning up and down the volume, but still nothing. I fiddle with it a little more, but nothing works, so I just go meh and switch to the radio and drive off. The playlist was still playing though, and I'd periodically switch with it and mess with it some more, turning up the volume or switching the song, but nothing was working. My commute home is about an hour away, but I got so fed up with my music, I stopped at a gas station about halfway, restarted my phone, and boom, the Bluetooth was working again, and I enjoyed my dumb mishmash of songs on the way home. So where's the mess up, you may ask? I only realized as I was pulling up to my house. My dudes, my siblings in Christ, I was hooked up to the speaker system at work, and I had been playing weird bluegrass music at the request of my coworker, and I couldn't hear my music in the car because all the rest of my colleagues and bosses were listening to it instead. You see, our sound system is based on an app that uses Spotify, not Bluetooth. I can play music in my workplace anywhere I have internet connection, and it's useful because it means you can have a phone conversation while still playing music. The one thing about the app is it takes precedence over Bluetooth. If there's a possible Bluetooth connection in this app, Spotify will choose to play on the app over the Bluetooth. And the only way to escape this is to turn on airplane mode or turn off data or restart your phone. From what I can gather, they probably got a little less than 10 songs in before I restarted my phone, and my music was on shuffle, and I know that they heard Drugs by Falling in Reverse 3 different times because that was mostly what I wanted to listen to, so I kept restarting it and letting it play. But what else could they have heard? Spit It Out by Slipknot, Auslander by Rammstein, some of my Chemical Romance songs I put on there for nostalgia, and the black metal chamber music song a friend did. At least that one is 7 minutes long, so it eliminates the other options, but black metal chamber music? The bagpipe dubstep, Ukrainian hard bass, bimbo core, Daddy by Psy, Big Time Rush by Big Time Rush? I can't even decide what the worst option is because the black metal chamber music is more on brand for me, but Big Time Rush by Big Time Rush is still a banger. See, this one's not as bad as a lot of the other ones, but I just think it's funny because his music's just so all over the place. They're like listening to some black metal chamber music. Next thing you know, Big Time Rush comes on. They're like, is he messing with us? Honestly, I'm not insulting your music taste. Having your own music taste is sick. It's just funny that your playlist seems like something you would see in like a meme video. Like, that's how varied it is. That's compliment. That's compliment. This one's not that bad, though. I don't feel like your coworkers will really freak out too much. Could you imagine he gets fired for this? Like, they just lose their mind for some reason? I was, for the most part, alone on a playground across the street from where my mom was in a meeting with her club. I was on the tire swing trying to make it spin as fast as I could, and I got it going pretty good, and as the rest of the playground whipped past my vision, I saw 2 girls roughly my age walk up to me. Hey, can we use the tire swing? You've been on it for a while now. For some reason, centrifugal blood loss to my brain, I guess. My response was to flip them the bird, or in this case, spin them the bird. What's he's doing? One said. He's giving us the finger, but it was the way she said it. Not hurt, not impressed, not even surprised. Her tone was like ice, and it made me feel like a subhuman piece of crap. I immediately arrested my spin, slunk out of the tire swing, and ran, albeit clumsily and sort of sideways, across the street to my mommy. And when I stuck my head in the door, I had tears running down my face, and she urgently came out to see what was wrong. I gave a girl the finger. I mean, at least you felt bad. They were just like, hey, we have been patiently waiting. May we have our turn? Flip them the bird, bro. You start crying right after. They were probably so confused. From then on, she just used that ice tone for anything, bro. Anytime someone gave her some attitude, she was just like, explain what they would do in that same tone. And you've basically given her a superpower for life. Seriously, I feel like little kids just be doing dumb stuff like flipping things off for no reason. I remember when I was younger, I thought like giving the middle finger to things was just the peak of comedy, bro. I thought I was a comedic genius. Look at me, I'm flipping things off, guys. Isn't this hysterical? What's going on, guys? It's your boy Scrub here, back again with another video. Hope you guys are having a great day. I know I am. Today I went ahead and gathered some stories from the pro-revenge subreddit. I figured you guys would probably really enjoy it. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. Manager insists I do my job properly. Well, I'm happy to comply, sir. In early 2020, I was hired under the title Assistant Manager at a local automotive shop. We mainly sold tires and alloy wheels for passenger vehicles. The company owned several stores, and I reported directly to my manager, who reported to the owner of the company. Shortly after I was hired, I noticed the behavior of the manager was far from professional. He would constantly mock and berate me for being the new guy, and I believe part of this was jealousy and insecurity on his part. I ended up recording more sales under my name within the first few months, and he would also knock off work early and start drinking beer while the rest of us kept working. I remember when he found out I participated in an MMA training session after work, he tried to goad me into a fight for his own amusement. Clearly the guy didn't like me, and I was starting to get the feeling he was going to get me to snap or lose my cool, and as a result, I became even more certain with what happened next. During the few months that I had worked there, I had noticed that our takings for the day and sales records did not match. I would often spend half an hour to an hour trying to figure out where the errors were coming from. And the manager would throw his hands in the air and exclaim he had no idea how this was happening. This recurring issue seemed to be that our cash takings had been recorded incorrectly. There would sometimes be an excess amount of cash that didn't match up to what was recorded on our software. and other times there would be less. I was, at the time, an accounting student studying towards my bachelor's degree, and I was already suspicious of the cash being out each day. However, given how the manager had been treating me up to this point, I was concerned that any complaint would somehow be twisted and used against me, and boy was I right. Several weeks later, my manager took some time off, and during this time I managed a personal record for in-store sales and also noticed something interesting. The cash was never out at the end of the shift. I reported this directly to the owner of the company, given I was acting as manager during the time. I was expected to report to him every day and explained what had been occurring while the manager was there. In all honesty, I was hopeful the owner would be having a word with the manager about it. However, I was also wary, as I believed once the owner spoke to my manager, the manager will know it was me who reported it. When the manager returned to work, he immediately reproached me with a disgruntled look on his face. "I've spoken with the owner. You tried to blame me for the discrepancies. You should focus on doing your job and then this wouldn't happen." I was quite taken aback by how angry he was, though I wasn't surprised that he twisted it and tried to place blame on me. Given his reaction, I'm even more suspicious, and he wants me to do my job properly, huh? And this is when the malicious compliance ensued. That same week, I got to work. I started paying attention to what customers were paying when they were dealing with my manager behind his back, and I began examining all the sales transactions and invoices with a fine-tooth comb. As the days rolled by, I started to find evidence of his dishonesty, and when it came to cash sales, my manager was doing the following. Example, he would tell the customer the price is $200 if they pay cash, would discount the price by $50 in the invoicing software, would put the extra cash into the till and record a $150 cash sale. Before we did the cash at the end of the day, he would sneakily pocket the extra cash while no one was around, though he was foolish, as he clearly couldn't remember the exact amount he had swindled, hence why the cash would be up some days or the cash would be down. I ended up taking screenshots of the discounts he had been giving on sales and sent them to the business owner along with a report. A report with a detailed description on my findings, and the report also showed that on the days he wasn't there for the cash count, there was no variance. And when he was there, well, the owner was infuriated. This man had been his entrusted employee for years. The owner was so infuriated, in fact, that he ordered my manager to do a mandatory drug test on the same day he found out, and to no surprise, he failed. Turns out the manager had quite the meth habit, and this was most likely his sole motive for stealing cash, and the owner was beside himself. We operate machinery every day in the store, so the thought of a manager walking around high as a kite wouldn't sit well with any health and safety professional. In fact, it could have landed the owner in serious legal trouble if any accident or injury occurred on his watch. The manager was terminated immediately for violation of his contract and was later taken to court in the owner in an attempt to recover his stolen funds. Safe to say, I was promoted to store manager position shortly after his termination. I think stealing from a business you work at is wrong, but this guy's especially stupid for coming back after being gone, knowing he got reported, the boss has already talked to him, and just continuing to steal this stuff. I guess meth makes you do crazy things, but honestly, once they're onto you, it's probably not a good idea to keep doing it, especially after you told someone to just shut up and do their job. Their job is going to become busting you, bro. You can also avoid all of this by A, never doing meth, and B, just never stealing from where you work. No reason to not have a job, alright? And no reason to do meth. I'm not the vice principal anymore? Okay. So none of the other admin in my district had received our contracts for the coming school year. I was wondering what was going on, but I heard rumors about a pay scale shift, and that was the reason for it. I found out Wednesday what's actually happening. Every assistant principal and vice principal in the district is not getting renewed contract, and their position is being eliminated. And their job is being replaced with a new position that pays a teacher's salary plus a $2,000 stipend. They are also replacing the assistant principals with learning coordinators. Apparently, budget is the given reason, but I've also heard rumors from someone at the district office. Each of us were scheduled to meet with the assistant superintendent Wednesday, and we thought it was about our contracts, and we were correct. When I arrived, the acting superintendent was there with the head of HR, and I was told about the elimination of my position, but not the reason why. I was then given the option for coming back for the upcoming school year. I could either go back into the classroom, I could work in the district office, or I could apply and interview for the new position replacing my job. WTF. I wouldn't care one lick if I was told my position had been completely cut and I needed to go back into the classroom, and I loved the classroom. I miss teaching full time. However, to tell me to apply and interview for a job I already have is bullcrap. We were told to give our district our answer by Friday, and they would draw up contracts or schedule interviews. Wednesday afternoon, I went to see Tony, who's an assistant superintendent and one of the few decent leaders in the school district. I heard from Tony there was an internal shakeup, but he wasn't allowed to talk about it or even give me a hint about what happened. However, one of the assistant supers was being reassigned, aka demoted, to being the principal of my current school. My principal was not coming back due to health reasons, and the superintendent was released from his contract. My school's new learning coordinator position had already been filled. Who filled it? A school counselor from one of the high schools who just happens to be a friend and lackey of the superintendent, that's the principal. So early this morning, I gave them my answer. I decided I didn't need until Friday to decide, and I tried to make sure I sounded professional, but I made sure my message was getting across by speaking with authority. I went into the acting superintendent's office and told him I thought that laying off a bunch of people so they could hire others to do the same job but pay less was BS. I told him that the way the school district handled certain situations was idiotic, and then gave several examples, and I next told him that he was going to ruin a perfectly good school with an amazing team by putting a lazy, mean, parent-pleasing person as the new principal and letting her put a lackey in as her second in command. I said that she was as useless as a screen door on a submarine and as mean as Dolores Umbridge, and I finished the 3-minute speech by stating that I will work my butt off and finish the school year strong, and I will prep things for the next school year so that the teachers have an easier time. And I also let him know I would never work at or recommend the district to anyone again, and then I left letting him know that I expect an amazing letter of recommendation by the end of the school day Friday afternoon, since I earned it for my service over the last few years. So what am I gonna do now? Well, I called up an old friend Wednesday who's currently a principal at a STEAM charter school that's part of our charter STEM schools, and asked if he had a teaching position available. He's been asking me every year for the past 5 years to come work for him, and he told me he had 3 openings and I could pick any of them. So next year I will be a 6th grade teacher, and I'm very happy about it. I even get to design my curriculum as long as it meets state standards. I could apply elsewhere for admin positions, but I think I need a break from school leadership. I need to love my work again like I used to as a teacher. Yeah, there are and were many challenges, and sometimes I hated going to work, but I love teaching. I feel bad for my current staff because the regime change will hit them hard, but there's nothing I can do about it. I wish I could help them, and the most I could do would be take a teaching position at my current school, but then I would be miserable with them and be helpless to do anything to stop it. So for myself and my daughter, who I love more than anything, I'm making the move to a new school and going back to what I enjoy doing, teaching. I'm even going to bring my daughter to my new school to start next year as a 5th grader. I asked her if she wanted to stay at her current school or go to the school with me, and she wants to go there. She was excited, and she's since visited them several times and loved the technology room and robotics classes and the science labs. Plus, she's friends with some kids there already. As a goodbye to myself, I'm going out this weekend and I'm going to buy some nice paper and scratcher tickets, and I'm going to write short individualized goodbyes to each of my staff members, and at the end I will include the following. I'm giving you scratcher tickets. My hope is that you are as lucky at scratching them as I have been of lucky to have worked with you. So that's it. I have to finish my contract, but at the end of June I'm free, and I'm looking forward to teaching full-time again and having a boss who will let me do my job and not interfere. I don't think I want to work in administration again, but maybe after a few years I'll decide to work as an assistant principal again. I put together goodbye gifts for all my staff, and I'll be handing them out Friday as it's their last day with kids. And they have a bunch of goodies that I posted about weeks ago. I think this weekend about how to give the finger one more time to the district office and help the teachers out, even in a small way, so I came up with it Sunday night. My district requires each teacher to attend additional training throughout the year. These are outside of the regular staff development trainings, and they are run by district staff, special education teachers, and admin. The training normally lasts 1 to 3 hours, and the teacher gets a certificate for time spent in training, and each teacher is required to attend 24 of these before the end of the school year. Most teachers take them over the summer if they're offered, so they don't have to take them during the next school year. So yesterday morning before work, I was making copies of the certificates for all the courses I have run here over the past few years. Classroom management strategies, lockdown procedures, social studies, math strategies, reading comprehension, environmental prints. I'm going to fill them out with each of the teacher's name and number of hours, and I'm adding up all the times I ever spoke to the staff about these topics and putting down the hours to correspond to the nearest hour-ish. Wouldn't you know it, each of those topics was 3 to 5 hours in length, and each staff will have exactly 24 hours worth of training. I filled out the dates for the 2022-2023 school year, and I will have attendance sheets with all their names with them marked as being present. I checked with the district, and since I'm still an administrator into the summer, I'm allowed to run these training dates over summer before I leave. Now they can have their summer to themselves and not have to worry about taking classes during the school year. They can if they wish, but 99% of the teachers here hate the mandatory training hours. I hope the staff likes the present. Since Friday, I'm no longer a school administrator, but technically I have another week to work, but I took vacation cause screw 'em. Now I spent the last week packing up, giving aid and comfort to my former staff, and causing problems for the new administrators who are jerks. Besides giving the staff an entire year free from additional training, I wasn't planning on causing more problems, just quietly leave and drive off into the sunset. But apparently I don't deserve a quiet week because the new principal and her teacher on assignment decided to be rude to me, and there was only response to that. I aimed to misbehave. How were they rude to me, you ask? First off, they ordered me to hurry and clean out my office because apparently they wanted to start redecorating it, and I was literally told, get all your stuff out of here ASAP, she wants her office now. I still had a week to work there and actual work to do. Second, the new principal tried to steal my personal chair and my personal office supplies and decorations. The chair was given to me from a friend. I found her wheeling it out of my office and into hers, and my desk supplies and banner on the wall were in a stack on its seat. I told her it's my personal chair and not the district, and she said okay. The very next morning, I found it missing, and she had moved it into her office after I left for the day. Third, I was given a list of tasks to complete by Friday by the teacher of the administration, who is in no way, shape, or form my boss, and these were not my job to do and are in fact the incoming admin's duty to complete. Stuff they were supposed to do, like put together staff packets, schedule next year's stuff, fill out and submit forms, all that stuff. Finally, I was talked down to every single day by the new admin team, and I was spoken to as though I were the hired help and they were the royal bitches. Seriously, I speak to a waitress that messes up my order with 20 times the amount of respect they showed me. They actually tried to get my attention by snapping their fingers at me like that would work. So I decided to do everything as I was told. I was the soldier and I know how to follow orders. I removed everything that was my personal property, including my chairs, decorations, and stress relievers, and fridge from the office, and file cabinets from my office. Yes, I bought government surplus cabinets because I didn't have any, and all my files and former principal's files were in there, and I even bought the folders I used in it. So I took every piece of paper out of my cabinets, removed them from my labeled covers, and stacked them on the floor in a large pile, and there is no order to how they're stacked. I took my chair from the principal's office while she was in a meeting with parents, walked in and rolled it out, and she stopped talking to the parents to ask what I was doing, and I responded I was taking my personal property out ASAP as I was ordered to do. I had an old medium-sized fridge I had placed in the office workroom for staff to store their food in, but it's mine, so I took it. I brought in right out the front door and loaded it into my truck and even took the new admin's food out and left it on the table. It's my fridge, and I warned the rest of the office staff I was taking it, but forgot to tell admin. Darn. I copied all my digital files over to a flash drive, then deleted everything off my Google Drive, anything I personally created or designed, and copied all my emails too. I informed the staff that if they need time off next year and needed approved to submit the forms this week, and I got several and they're all approved. And I got this idea from someone who messaged me here on Reddit and suggested it, so thanks for the advice. I approved every supply list item the staff submitted and even drove to the district warehouse to pick up some personally, and even approved funds for a second-hand kiln for the art teacher because she had found a good one on Craigslist. I had repaired my desk with bolts and tools from home, so I took the bolts back and the desk is lopsided again, and the closet door was broken when I got there, so I fixed it but put it back as it was when I was hired. The two-way mirror to the detention room was mine. I had gotten it from a friend at another school, and it allowed me to watch the ISS and detention students from my office without them seeing me. Popped it right out and took it home, and now the TOA has a hole in the wall detention kids can look through. I had put together all the lockdown buckets and fire drill bags myself with my own money, and I took all them back. This I felt bad about, but I will give them out to staff at my new school. I put a rush order on all classroom and building repairs and have an approved order to have every classroom repainted. I assembled new staff packets in the new school year binders, but besides the basics of what is required, I have included throughout the binder in random places Dilbert cartoons, famous Harry Potter quotes, the lyrics to Nickelback's How You Remind Me, I Kissed a Girl by Katy Perry, All Star by Smash Mouth, and We Built This City by Starship, a map of the area where I marked all the good places to eat lunch off campus, funny Far Side teacher comics, cheesy teacher jokes, the union contact info, crossword Sudoku word searches, a list of educational lawyers, and I also included in the binder the admin Wi-Fi password for them since that signal is stronger for some reason. I went ahead and wrote out the training schedule for next year, and oddly, every Wednesday is listed as free time or work in your classroom. I'm sure they'll change it, but I don't know when they will find out what it says. I had a master list of donators and partners in the community, and it was posted on a whiteboard in my office. I got over 4 dozen businesses and people in my community to help with various things over the years, and spent a lot of my time building my relationships with them and making deals. I took a photo of it and erased the list and took the whiteboard since it was mine. Friday, I flew the LGBT flag instead of the state flag, and I also placed LGBT flags in each classroom in case the staff wanted to display them. Then I got yelled at 3 times. The first time is when I got back to my chair. I was told it was unprofessional just to take it without asking, especially with guests present, and I responded with, yes, it was unprofessional for me to take my chair without asking. The second time was when the teacher assistant found the refrigerator gone and she said something that it was community property, and I said, no, it's my property, and I was told to take all my property from campus. And the third time was when I was in the parking lot leaving and they found the piles of papers. The principal flagged me down and told me to clean it up, and I told her I was off the clock and the district never reimbursed me for the cabinets, so I had to take them with me. I'm expecting a call from HR today asking for my assistance setting everything back up with all my stuff removed and erased, and the admin team has to actually put in some hard work. I'd come in, but at a consultant rate of $75 an hour with a minimum contract of 12 hours. So as some of you know, I left the world of being an administrator a few weeks ago, and I tried to leave behind some nice gifts when I left. I wasn't looking to cause problems my last few weeks, but the new admin team treated me in a way that was unacceptable, so I decided that Malcolm Reynolds had it right when he said, I aim to misbehave. Well, the Tuesday after I left, I received a call from HR and I ignored it, and then left for a road trip with my daughter where we went to San Francisco for a few days into 2 Giants games, and unfortunately they lost both games. While we were on our trip, they called and emailed at my personal email account. My work one was deleted, and I ignored the calls and never opened the emails. My daughter and I went to Disneyland for a few days of fun and returned this Friday, and I checked the voicemails and emails. I was asked, begged, and then ordered to come to the HR for important meetings. It's very important we speak to you as soon as possible, is what they said repeatedly. So yesterday I went into the district office wearing cargo shorts, a shirt I got in Disneyland, and flip-flops. Because I don't work there. I don't have to dress up. When I arrived, I was originally treated like a visiting VIP. The HR manager and her assistant tried to butter me up like a Pillsbury biscuit, and after a few minutes of them trying to make small talk and me then letting them know I had plans to go to lunch in 30 minutes, they got to the point. They wanted me to turn over the things I took with me that, though they belonged to me, were sorely needed at the school. They gave me a list from the new principal, which included, but was not limited to, my chair, seriously, my refrigerator and appliances, my community contacts board, and the people and businesses that I built relationships with and partnerships with, my personally designed forms and worksheets, a 2-way mirror, and my lockdown buckets and fire drill bags. They also wanted copies of every record I kept and notes I took on staff and students. The notes taken on the staff were so I could personalize gift for them and have conversations with them on their interests. I said no to all of the requests, and told the ladies that the furniture and appliances were mine that I brought in, and stated the chair was a gift for me from a friend and the new principal can afford to buy her own. I also stated that I left any official school district documents that were there and anything I took with me and or deleted were my own making and intellectual property, and I also stated that my contacts were developed over the years on my personal time at a personal cost to me. I also stated that everything that I had taken was mine and submitted a list of everything I took. I had submitted the reimbursement forms and was never reimbursed, and I kept my records and pay stubs, and I never saw a red cent from those submissions. They offered to pay me for some of the items and gave me a rough figure of what they could pay to return the fridge, whatever, same thing, forms, buckets, bags, mirror, and contact board. I told them I did not want to hand it over to the new admin team since they treated me poorly. They asked me again and tried to reason that some of the things could be interpreted as school property, and I told them that they were welcome to try and force me to return anything that was legally mine, but I'd be willing to fight it in court. I also told them those two new administrators made me uncomfortable, and their treatment of me could be considered making a hostile work environment, especially when they tried to make me do their jobs for them, and then I gave them my lawyer's info. Yeah, this was the definition of pro-revenge. So many stops along the way where it's just like, oh, okay, yep, add that to the list of insane things. Oh, yep, that too. I also love, get all of your personal things out of here ASAP. Wait, hold on, we just wanted you to take the personal things that we didn't want. We want to keep most of your stuff. That's not how stuff works. You don't get to just keep it because you like it. Are you crazy? Especially the chair. Hey, can you give me your chair back? I just really liked it. It was a lot comfier than the one the school district gives out. You're telling me the school district doesn't have nice chairs? Who could have ever seen that coming? School districts not having money isn't something everyone's aware of being a problem. I understand budgets are bad, but when you shove good workers into crappy positions and then, give them crappy bosses that are getting demoted, it just doesn't make sense to me. They were a horrible superintendent, so you're going to make them a principal. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, they were so bad at their other job, let's give them an equally important one. Not literally on the ranking, but you know what I'm saying. If they can't be an assistant superintendent, they probably can't run a school either. Dealing with an entitled neighbor. Just flipping through a few stories and reading about entitled drivers getting their just desserts, and this made me think back to my days as a paramedic. We got a call to a house where there was a bariatric patient who had fallen. The patient was morbidly obese and weighed about 30 stone, and this story really isn't about them. There are many reasons people get to decide. I've never judged, only helped. The problem here was a really arrogant neighbor we had come across before, and boy, this was a chap who was an absolute judgmental moron. Our patient had a car and had a disabled parking permit, and they also had a council-designated disabled parking spot outside their home, which the neighbor kept parking in. There had been a number of letters from the council regarding this, and a number of parking fines just served to annoy this chap even more. On the day of the story, I took the call that the patient had fallen and we went to the house. Sure enough, the neighbor was not only parked in the disabled spot, but he had parked a second car blocking access to the patient's driveway. I assessed the patient and suspected they had a broken hip, so we needed to go in. I sent my colleague round to the neighbor to ask them to move the cars, and when they came back, I was told the neighbor had told them to do one. No problem. Time to get the message home. I radioed through to our control center and asked for the fire service and police. We needed the fire service to help lift the guy and the police to do a little parking control. The fire service were the first to arrive, and I spoke to the crew commander to let them know what the situation was. A fireman went to the house to ask the neighbor to move the car and was told the same as my colleague. The message was relayed back, and the watch commander just asked one question. Is the patient's life at risk? I knew exactly where this was going, and it was time our thoughtless neighbor got the message. My answer was, yes, there is equipment I need to get into the house, and the driveway is blocked, preventing me from doing so. The watch commander told the fire truck driver to move the vehicles, and it was really satisfying to see both vehicles being pushed down the road by the fire service, and the look on the neighbor's face as he came out spitting and screaming was well worth seeing. His complaints to the police fell on deaf ears, as they were well aware of his history of obstruction, and my clinical assessment that the patient's life was in danger was more than enough justification for the vehicles to be moved. I doubt it made our patient's life any easier, and sadly they passed a few months later without leaving the hospital. but it really did bring a smile on their face as we wheeled them out. You have to be a special type of mean person to be willing to just park in a disabled spot if you're not disabled. Like, I don't care if it's the better spot or if it's closer to the door. If you're not disabled, don't take it. Like, what type of jerk are you? But it's even more insane to me that you would just not move your car when the paramedics are asking you to. Even if you have the wrong idea that you're justified to be parking in disabled spots all the time when you're not disabled, you'd think you'd at least be like human enough to move it out of the way when someone's life is in danger. Hey man, someone could die if you don't move your car. Too bad, I already parked it. Your parking job is more valuable than people's lives, bro? Mom takes HOA down from the inside. My neighborhood does not have an HOA, at least not anymore. When my parents first moved in, my older sibling, 2 years older than me and as little as a glowworm, there was an HOA. They took money from the neighborhood in exchange for services, and at first and for a while, my parents shrugged it off. The HOA shoveled the snow off the streets in the winter and dealt with trash collection, so it was worthwhile, right? No, the city controlled the snow plows and garbage trucks, not the HOA, but there was an illusion of effort. And besides, one summer they decided to contact a company to plant new trees all over, and the company was owned by the son of the HOA, and that was totally coincidental. The trees were the beginning of the end for the HOA. Why? Well, my grandma on my dad's side was visiting when they came around to plant the trees, and my grandma, who's a certified master gardener, stared through the windows of our house as the guys planting the trees just dropped the saplings on the grass, still with the roots inside the bag they came in, no holes dug, no holes cut, just a bagged sapling lying on the grass like a pathetic sad stick. The saplings laid there all night and no one came back to actually do the job and plant them. My grandma mentioned offhand that those saplings were going to die unless they got into the soil. And something clicked in my mom's head. She was paying the HOA money, actual money, every month, while both she and my dad worked hard taking care of 2 little kids, sending us to daycare and preschool, and arranging babysitters and feeding us. And the HOA was just going to pull this bullshit where instead of just doing what she's paying them to do, no way. So she showed up to the head of the HOA's house basically demanding that the trees get planted properly, like she's paying them to do. And the head of the HOA, so excited for someone actually caring about the neighborhood, made the second mistake. They asked my mom if she wanted to join the HOA. She agreed, the trees were planted, but most didn't make it as my grandma was right. First things first, my mom showed up to the next HOA meeting and there were like 5 people there. No wonder they asked my mom to join as they desperately needed the people. So my mom looked at this collection of people who weren't even paying money to the HOA like the rest of the neighborhood. All the contractors the HOA called were close relatives of other members and weren't paid by the HOA. After all, they're family. So my mom started digging and she spent pretty much a full summer taking down the HOA before she had to go back to teaching in the fall, with me carted along after her and my sibling old enough to be in school or daycare. She dug through years of paperwork detailing the HOA's financial situation, and she found something enlightening. The HOA didn't do anything. Well, they didn't do anything to benefit the community. Everything they claimed to do was covered by the individual homeowner or city itself. So they were collecting money from all of the neighborhood residents under false pretenses and weren't even actually supposed to be in the neighborhood. Their association zone was a whole different neighborhood. So what is a working mother of 2 small children to do while her husband is off at work and she's off for the summer? She goes door to door with pamphlets, me and my sibling as a stroller, as she weaves her way through the neighborhood blocks. Pamphlets explaining the situation and how to stop paying for services you'll never get. Pamphlets that are, of course, written in both English and Spanish to account for the high amount of Latino and Hispanic people in the neighborhood. And naturally, she got a lawyer and an accountant, and it put a major dent in her pocket, but if it meant the entire neighborhood wasn't exploited for money each month, it was worth every penny. Another HOA member helped her sift through the documents and data and pass out pamphlets and encourage people to show up to the meetings, but had to back out due to work-related reasons. My mom strolled up to the courthouse, flanked by lawyer and accountant, her kids safe at home with her husband, and had more than enough evidence to get the HOA out of the neighborhood, expose the fraudsters for the frauds they were, and make sure the HOA would never push their luck in our neighborhood again. It's been almost 19 years and no one's even tried making another HOA in our neighborhood. The fact that nobody caught on sooner is insane. Like, they were literally pocketing money from an entire neighborhood for years. That's nuts, bro. I've always hated the idea of an HOA. In Las Vegas, most neighborhoods just kind of tend to have one. But the idea that just like some random guy that lives 5 streets over is in charge of everything I do and I have to get approval before I do anything is nuts. And let's be honest, if they're in charge of like 3,000 houses taking $50 a month from each house, there's no way they're spending all that money on maintenance and whatnot. I'm sure a lot of HOAs are like this situation where they're saying they're doing all this stuff that's actually taken care of by the city and then hiring their like nieces and nephews and sons and brothers to do the work instead. Oh, yep, I hired my brother Dan to kill 900 tree saplings. This HOA association is just the opposite of Mr. Beast. They're like the anti-team trees. They're just going to kill as many saplings as humanly possible. New ownership takes over and guy goes on vacation for 2 years due to stupid new rules. A family friend was working at the same company since he was 26 up to when he was 64, and when the below started, he really got a good deal. Part of the problem was laws in the country increasing the retirement age from 62 to 65 was when he was in his early to mid 50s. Then again, from 65 to 67 when he was 62, 63. The old owners were a family and ran the business with benefits to the employees. From everything I've heard, I think they were giving an extra vacation week after every 6 years at the company. So on top of the standard 4 weeks, he had an extra 6 weeks at the time of the events. And also, people had access to 2 weeks of working from home when the job allowed them to, or an extra week off for those that couldn't use it. So he was getting 11 weeks off each year. As a bonus, the family owners were allowing people above 55 to use their vacation time as they desired. All at once, with 2 weeks notice, or segmented, or just don't use it and pile it up for when the retirement came. Another issue we have at our country is that when you submit retirement paperwork, they take ages. So it's often the case it may take 2 years to calculate what to pay you and start paying you. Of course, they give you back pay, but it's still a problem for the period of delay, and they calculate that you're only getting the minimum amount. The guy already had 44 years of experience and a bit more ahead of him as an engineer, and a well-paid one, which meant a great retirement amount. To combat this, the owners allowed for people to gather up their weeks of time off, and at the end of it, take 20 to 30 weeks off while submitting their retirement paperwork, so the money would be being paid to them and it would last longer into the calculation period. Of course, some didn't use it, but many did. So the company gets sold because the owner saw some writing on the wall that their profiting wouldn't last more than 6-7 years and wanted out, and it was due to old age as well. New ownership was part of some Coca-Cola subsidiary and takes over and starts removing all previous rules. At the guy's position, there were 3 of them. Him, a second colleague, and a third. They push out the second one, and the third one has a heart attack a week later. They also go and dock his pay by 15% because he's making too much for a simple engineer. The 3 of them held a patent for the machinery used on something specific. A second one knew how to make the machinery, and the third one on the process of the production of the small but significant part. The old owner had allowed them to put the patents on them when they invented a new one, which was 30% cheaper and 75% faster. And they had used it since years ago. Suddenly, he's alone on the position at 64, and the company hires 6 people for him to train. And at the same time, they give him to the end of the year for all the piled up vacation time to be claimed. Notice the wording claimed, not used. So the guy was using in between 1 and 5 weeks for the past decade, so he had gathered up 87 weeks of time off. But they hadn't looked at specific cases, apparently. So they get him the 6 new people to train, and they tell him he needs to have them trained in 6 months. And he still had 2 to 2.5 years until retirement. So he just goes and takes 87 weeks of vacation time with 3 hours notice on a Friday evening, starting the upcoming Monday. Still on advance, and notifying is required, but no distance is specified. They don't pay attention on it until next Thursday when the CEO notices 6 people sitting around all day and no one training them. Then the phone calls start, then emails, then letters get added to the mix, and then home visits by low-ranking secretaries to deliver the letters, then management visiting his home, and by week 7 the CEO visited 3 times, but the door hasn't been opened once. His mother-in-law lives across the street, and him and his wife are taking care of her, so most of the time they're over there and can see everyone visiting their house. The production is actually running on itself, but no upkeep is being done on the critical part. In week 11, it says that one line out of the two breaks down. They start visiting his house 3-4 times a day. 2 weeks later, the second line breaks down, and he obviously has lots of friends inside and is getting constant updates, and at that point, they only have 4 weeks of backstock to keep the rest of the production running. It's December, right before Christmas, and he goes in during week 13 and says he needs to take some things from his locker, and the CEO starts yelling at him, saying, "You're stopping your time off right now, you're coming back to work to fix everything." He offers to come back for 3 days under an agreement that the entire week will be returned to himself for time off. The CEO agrees and also tries to push him for training, but he doesn't budge and only fixes things up and goes on vacation again. By Saturday, everything's fixed and he leaves, a couple of basic instructions on what needs greasing every week, and he's off again. Few weeks pass, the new year has come around and the line is broken again, and he gets called back and the CEO pretends like the previous deal will be used again. He goes in for 2 days, fixes everything, explains a couple more things to the team of 6, who by now have other duties, and then when he is about to leave, the CEO says, "Tomorrow, 8 a.m. The guy says what, and the CEO explains that you could claim your time off by the end of last year, and you just ended your claim time off, so you're losing the remaining 69 weeks. The guy is furious and just goes and reports the company to workers' rights. They are actually dumbfounded by the time off amount he's allotted, and the lady serving him calls her colleagues to listen in. They laugh their butts off by his story, and they actually issue a verdict the next day. It usually takes weeks, but apparently they had too much fun with this one, and he is to get all of his time off under previous rules for the time accrued before the rules changed. So he has his 69 weeks, should be 70 due to him getting the one he worked on renewed by their deal, but he lost that one. And he also has 6 weeks from the new year. So he goes in with the verdict and gives it personally to a fuming CEO, and according to the guy, steam's coming out of his ears. The CEO accepts unwillingly the deal with the guy coming in for 3 days every 5 weeks off. If he's needed during this time, tough luck, they should work to produce backstock. A full year goes by that way. The guy is 66 at this point, and he's been training the 6 slowly every 5 weeks, and he's on his last visit before he takes the last 5 weeks off. The CEO goes to him and delivers personally the firing notice for the first day he'll be back. He plays shocked and leaves for another 5 weeks. This one is a problem because if you apply for retirement even half a year early, you're losing a significantly more than just the small period, and he has about 10 months of him ahead of him for retirement. His last 5 weeks expire and he goes in to gather his stuff, and only a coffee cup was remaining. He knew this was coming and had taken everything over time. He gets an extremely big payout for firing with no cause, and the next day he sends a cease and desist letter to the company for the use of the 3 patent. He talked with the fired guy who had agreed with his revenge plan, and he had also talked with the widow of the now dead friend and colleague as well, and they had both of them on board. He had been supporting the widow, but he didn't say anything to anyone, and I found out recently from the other guy about it. So now the company has to stop using those machines and the method with 0 notice, and all the competitors have found and built and patented their own versions of the same, and if they don't find a solution, it's going to cost 40% more to take out the double time to produce the same part in the procedure of production. So they would need to double the lines, and if they go and use the old method while they look for a new one. After just 3 weeks of looking to license the method of one of the competitors and not getting anywhere, stock being extremely low by that point, they struck a deal with the guy. He will be an external contractor who obviously keeps the patents to his name, and he will be doing maintenance on his own and will be paid by the hour what he was previously making in a full day, and he will be on call for maintenance while having one person there at all times for upkeep. He went and stole all the 6 people he trained and hired them in his new company and put them to work at the factory again with pay double what they were receiving. He fully trained them quickly and he was now getting paid a crap ton. The CEO was fired for stopping production. The deal was struck mere hours before backstock ended, and he also cost the company a ton of money by firing the guy. At the funeral of the old owner, many old employees met up and told their different stories, and apparently there were 3 more similar cases with patent holders because the old owner treated his team very well, but he apparently was the only one to string them on for almost 2 years by being out on vacation and getting paid. All of them had a great laugh, including the widow of the owner and his sister, who were the other 2 partners in the factory before it got sold. Bro, that is some next level revenge, but I'm always shocked by how CEOs are always trying to take on the oldest, most experienced guy there. Like, yeah, he definitely doesn't have a lot more experience at this than you. You're gonna do great going up against him. It's not like the guy that's been doing this for his entire life would have more experience on how to deal with this stuff. Believe it or not, old people, yes, they might be boomers, but they have seen more stuff than us. Chances are they know how to, like, secretly be doing things to make the company have to pay them for their 2 years off. What a great plan, though, man. You know that was some sweet, sweet vacation time. He's just chilling, playing bingo at the retirement hall with all the grandmas. So what do? Oh, I'm actually taking vacation time, getting full salary while just goofing off. It's pretty sick. Anyways, guys, I think that's going to do it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, I'd appreciate you taking a second to press the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comment section down below. And of course, subscribe if you're new and turn on those notifications. And if you want more videos, I have a playlist of Reddit videos on the channel. Feel free to check that out. But yeah, on that note, don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot. And I'll see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.